GearWebsites.com is your source for firearms-based playing cards and books. We also have mugs, shirts, and posters with designs that we've made live. Of course, we have patches. Every Friday is Free Patch Friday. We appreciate your support. Thank you for shopping at GearWebsites.com. AskGunQuestions.com is a website that we built back in 2007, and since then, for the last 15 years, people have been able to ask questions of simple to advanced nature, and we attempt to answer them in different ways over the years. Join us now as we start a new series to answer gun questions. And welcome everybody to Ask Gun Questions, where we get together, well, normally with Clover and Tony. Tony's going to be here in a bit, he said, and Clover threw his computer into some soup, as far as we can tell. So whenever we don't get Clover, means we got to bring in a co-host, and he's got his sombrero going today, and I got him a set of horseshoes, so he's going to try on some horseshoes. These on his feet. I don't know how you nail them on there, I guess. I'm not quite sure how to do this, but we'll get these on here somehow today. Okay, so otherwise, got gun questions coming on here. First off, anyone trivia? Anyone know what, he knows what it is, but anyone know what that is in the background? What's a scene from what situation in the background there? If this guy's too loud, we can put him down. So let me know if he's too loud, if he's too obnoxious. But we do have a co-host here today. Thanks to Mike White for saying hey to him. Looks like he's getting used to his sombrero. Let's see. Are gun stores with dogs better than gun stores without dogs? Yes. Gun stores with dogs have customers who know that the store is legit. Okay, all right. They know that the store is legit, and they know that it's real, right? And it's not some fake corporate store. We'll let Tony answer this question. Welcome. Tony, the first question that came up is, are gun stores with dogs better than gun stores without dogs in your experience?
Yeah, always. Any business with dogs is better than business without dogs.
Yeah, that's a good point too. All right, I'm putting you down. I don't need a co-host anymore. I got a real co-host. Yeah. So he's super excited because it's hot out, and I think he thought I was going to stick these horseshoes in. So,
but I don't care. I'm just not sorry.
Let's see what we got going on today. Do you got anything to start off the show? Anything that happened this week that's interesting or good or bad?
Well, we just came back, did the diversity shoot at the Union Hill Gun Club, which was really great. Had a lot of young people this time. We had, some teenage kids from different backgrounds, which is hilarious. We had little white kids that came in with their dad, which was awesome because that's the next generation, stereotypical, white male when we're talking demographics and how people try to categorize us. And I'm looking going, good. We need, 2A advocates regardless, every category. Right. Well, the other group of young men that came in were all Egyptian and Algerian, and between the ages of 18 and maybe 25. And this was like some of their second trip, some third. And then they brought some new guys with them to bring more into the fold. And we were talking about the politics side and how it's important for the younger generation to actually step in to not only advocacy, but understand local politics. And that's where they need to step up. And that's where they can actually count the most in local politics when people know you and where people know you. It's like, forget, running for president at, 25. But town council, school board, those things make a big difference because it builds up. It's the foundation of your neighborhood, of your town, of your county, and of your state. And when you get on the foundation,
Make a
you,
big difference.
you affect different things when you get on the foundation. And that's what I was trying to tell these guys that, hey, I'm the old dude in the room now. I was like, we're depending on guys like you to keep this alive if you get into it. So that's what it was about, trying to recruit young people and make them excited about firearms, first of all, and have fun pulling triggers, but understand that it can go away and we need them. I don't think they stressed that with us coming up. You know what I mean? It was like nobody told us they needed us as gun owners or as activists or as advocates at all. I mean, I was glad they didn't throw me out the store when I was a kid, because all I'd do is go there, stare at the glass, and ask a million questions.
Do you think that back then that they knew the same thing, though? That, hey, these are going to be the kids that are going to be buying stuff 20 years from now or whatever it was, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, whatever. And or do you think they were just like not thinking about that and get out of here?
I don't think overall, heck, I don't think most gun stores think about that today. I think they're starting to. I really think back then it was a lot of mom and pop stores and they didn't think about the big picture. They thought about, heck, if their kids were going to be interested in taking over the business. You know what I mean? It was like more what's going on right now and not what's going on in the future. I mean, America as a whole didn't understand the threat we were under, I don't think, in the 80s and the 90s, because we had just got the Brady bill started. Like Brady just came out of his coma and started advocating in the 80s. So it wasn't that overall, Ronald Reagan had signed, the Hughes Amendment in 86? But you didn't see that as anything, so what's machine guns? Who cares?
Well, and the thing is, there wasn't any kind of a discussion that was happening. So it wasn't like this is the topic of the discussion. That was probably one of the, after 68, that was probably another thing, event that created the need for a discussion constantly so that we wouldn't be blindsided by these things in the future or now.
Yeah, I mean, so as an NRA member as a teen, because we had to join to be a part of our school rifle team, nobody really cared. It was just the team was, I guess, in part sponsored by the NRA, and that was the only reason that a membership was required, not because they wanted us there as any kind of advocates or activists. They wanted our money, which nothing changed about that. But that's any group. Heck, that's me.
Well, if you had a model shop or a comic shop or, like dog, what do you call it, like a pet store with fish or something, like any store that saw potential customers that had an interest in what they were selling, they wanted to foster those customers for sure.
So that was a good thing. But that's what I did. I'm really happy with that. Our next event is on the 17th at Gunfire Range. So I've already put videos out. I have the tickets already out. And I'm doing the emails, sending them to anyone that ever bought a ticket. And I'm getting a pretty good rate of opening. Half the people open it. So 50% of them open the email that gets sent. Yeah.
Right on. All right, well, we got a bunch of people here tonight, or this morning, this afternoon, whatever it is, for whatever it is, time it is, where people are listening to this. So Gunpowder Beauty was the first one in here. Welcome. Woods is out there, Mike White and Abigail. Let's see, then we had, I think it's Ting Ting and Snicky.
Yeah, I'm thinking that's Ting Ting too, because the sense of humor.
Then 500 Magnum brought up some stuff, and if anybody else is out there and I'm missing you, let's say hey. So there's some stuff that I starred already, some questions and some points. First off, Abigail did the member for 4 months thing, sort of a super chat type of awareness thing people can do. Thanks for that. And thanks for being a channel member. We have a scroll at the bottom of the screen for Patreon, a place where you can subscribe to our projects. We really appreciate the people. Most of them are buying us a cup of coffee each month, and then that accumulates and allows us to keep the servers going and all the software that we use. and actually look forward to do more with our time here. Then we also have channel members here on YouTube. Not quite as lucrative, but a little easier for people that are big fans of YouTube. They take a bigger cut, in other words. But again, people that subscribe to what we're doing. Do you have a channel membership set up on your channel, Tony? On YouTube?
No, I don't. I think I went over, what is it, 1,000 subs. I don't know if that allows me to set up for that.
Yeah, I'm not even sure anymore either. It's something they added years after I was already doing this stuff, so it just kind of got added to the heap. I don't know what the qualifications are when they give it to everybody, but it is easy for people that are on YouTube, and it's an alternative to like a Patreon. But I'm not going to go around acting like it's the best option for everybody because they take like a 30% cut, and YouTube provides a nice service here, but that's a pretty deep cut for subscriptions. But again, we appreciate the people that are making it possible for us to spend the time on this, and Abigail is one of those members. We've got a question from Woods. Good gun question. 38 Special, is it still relevant?
100%. 100% is still relevant. Don't base your relevancy on gun media, regardless of where that gun media is from. 38 Special still does 38 special things. It was one of the most sold handgun and handgun caliber combos out there, and really it didn't start changing until mid 80s, early 90s, even in the press. And people still have them, and they're still relevant. They still sell them. Major manufacturers, Colt, Kimber, Ruger, Smith. Everybody makes a 357 38, and some just make straight 38s, even Rock Island Armory. So you got all price tiers and everything. So yeah, 38 is still relevant. It's just the newer generation of gun tubers, and even the people that the younger people that play video games, and that's how they get introduced to firearms. Not a lot of those in video games. Back in the day, it used to be on every television show, every cop show, every, bad guy that had a gun had a 38, snub nose. Street cops had a 4-inch barrel. And that just went away in the last, 30 years?
I mean, not even, because really until 380s came along and the 9mm came in and knocked those out of the place, the little tiny 9mm that came along after the 380s became popular. I think it wasn't until the early 2000s that people finally said, okay, I'm not going to carry a tiny revolver in my pocket or on my ankle or on my hip or wherever it was, in my purse.
True.
So I think that they were the second gun, and they were the deep concealment up until the early mid 2000s, I guess, when, the early 2000s when we started to see some competition with the little 380s. And then it only took years for the little 380s to just get stomped on. And there was a little bit of a concern there, which, since we're talking about little 38 specials, there was right before the 380s came and hit the market with essentially the Kel-Tec P3AT.
Yep, exactly.
Tiny revolvers, and everybody tried to pile on the Kel-Tec train, and nobody gives respect to Kel-Tec for doing that, for being really the first successful commercial 380 revolver, pistol. But the what is it, a 327 HMR Magnum tried to come around, and it was to give a J-frame 6 shots of a little bit stronger, a little bit more narrow, but like a mini 357 in the size of a 38, right? And that was like, oh, you get another round, and you still got your wheel gun that we're all accustomed to. But then the 380s came around, and then those little tiny 9mm had to ruin it for everybody, and they decided
the shield,
to push into everybody, to sneak their way into everybody's pocket. To steal their way into everybody's pocket away from the revolvers. But yeah, that's when I think what happened is the 327 came along and kind of challenged the 38 Special. So now revolvers didn't even know what caliber to be in. And it's not like 327 stayed around. It was a flash in the pan concept. But as far as calibers go in the long term, right? I mean, it's still around technically, but it was really a contender there for about a minute. And then 380 said, hold my coffee, and then 9mm came in and ruined it for everybody. But I think now it's just people that want that are under. I think that the 38 to answer the big question, I think the 38 has a place because there's still people that understand that a pistol can't work when there's somebody laying on top of you. And some people have a concern of needing their firearm when there's somebody laying on top of them. Like, I'm a big dude. I realistically don't think I'm going to be in too many situations where somebody's laying on top of me when I need to use lethal force. But other people could have that scenario, more potential. And dooming them to a pistol that needs to have a reciprocating slide in order to shoot more than once or even once, I don't understand that theory. So I think 38 Super is definitely here to stay because it's a capable round that it can be a smaller gun than the 357 and can work when it's literally being jammed into the bad guy's rib cage and pulling the trigger.
I believe, I 100% believe that. Also, as someone that trains and introduces people of different ages, like I think I have a pretty good spread when it comes to people that I deal with. There are a lot of people that do not trust in something without a safety unless it's a revolver. And a significant portion of the firearms that the mass gun marketing media pushes is striker-fired firearms without a safety, and definitely semi-autos. So yeah, definitely still out there. It's not where it used to be, but it's still out there. I just started thinking about what Korth, Nighthawk Customs just hooked up with Korth. Beretta, I think, hooked up with Manchurian, and they're going to start shipping guns, those French revolvers over, French 357 38s. I'm combining the two because I still believe 38 specials out of a 357 Magnum make a lot of sense for a lot of people, especially when you got a hot 38 with like a 158 grain. Doesn't kick as much, softer shooting, and still 38 as a training round is going to be out there because not many people want to, especially when you have a smaller framed 357, wants to launch full body 357s out of them to train with. So that 38 is always going to be there as long as the 357 is there.
All right, I snuck a poll up in here. So how do you feel about the 38 special? You love it, you like it, nah, or heck no? So we'll see what people think out there. Next one will be kind of going towards gun shops here. So Woods is saying, sad news here. Mary Pistols and Brown Box Ammo. And Brown Box Ammo Guy both closed yesterday as a result of the assault weapons ban that passed recently in Washington State.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a statement, I guess, and that's sad to hear. But then he says, thoughts on tactics antis used to close gun stores, mostly the ones non-gunners wouldn't think are directly targeting independent gun stores.
That again falls down to your local politics. I mean, that's one way it's going to have to change. Not a lot of people want to hear that because they want the television 30-minute, your problem is solved answer. Like you can magically make a phone call, and if enough people do it, these people change their mind. And I think you need a combination of phone calls. You need a combination of letter writing, people actually showing up in person to town hall meetings, and to put the fear of not being reelected in some of these people that pass laws like this. I mean, it's easy to say you're a patriot and not do anything. When you look at what the Patriots did, when you look at what the founders did, they risked everything to not only protest, to not only sign stuff, they risked everything, including their lives and their futures, to win this country. So asking somebody to go down and make a $20 donation to a candidate, or to call them, send them an email, or send them a fax, I don't think that's asking a lot. It's just you got to convince people that it makes a difference. And I think that's the hard part because you have so many people telling you it doesn't make a difference because it's local. It doesn't make a difference because No one listens to you. I'm like, you have to do more than just talk. You got to actually show up. And I think that'll make a difference on the local level. And that would make a difference on the state level too. Because some of it's even, or sheriff's officer saying, the local sheriff goes, yeah, this is unconstitutional. We're not enforcing it. I mean, it could be who you elect as sheriff that's important. Who you put on a town or city council is important. And those are much smaller elections that can be easily, the Overton window, like we like to use, could be easily shifted, or who gets elected can be easily changed comparatively to trying to, change a national election.
So that's sort of what's the word, like policy wise ways to deal with the specific areas. See, there's different things going on, I guess, in this question. So thoughts on the tactics antis are using to close gun stores. So there's Woods talking about or asking this question in Washington State, and he's got an actual state level initiative that has consequences to the these livelihoods of these businesses because they've added all kinds of state level burden to it, to their business, I guess, or to the way they do business.
Mm-hmm.
But then we've also got Biden already having passed two different pieces of legislation. Last year, I forget the time frames now. Last year or so in his in his presidency, that was backed by a chunk of Republicans that allowed it to go through. Just before they almost got the assault weapons ban, again backed by a bunch of Republicans, and so there's some politics side to it, but I think that there's also the element that the reason this can keep going on and the reason that they're able to switch their tactics at all is because there's still an underlying lack of awareness of the reality of firearms, the reality of the idea that, again, the antis, the people who would suggest that it's just the property, just one type of property, really, just this one type of property, guns, are what's responsible for societal issues. They're able to, everything they do is based on that. And I'm going to get back to that even if it's a fight at the local level or the national level, I think that one thing that I see that hasn't been addressed is education, awareness, whatever you want to call it. So, what do we do individually? Go to gun stores, figure out what their gun stores in your area are all about, because you're going to find gun shops that are there for AR-15. Some of them are there for concealed carry stuff mostly. Some of them are there, like I'm in Tucson. Some of them are here for guns, like cowboy guns. And then when you say cowboy guns, there's people that shoot single action games, like the new modern stuff, and they want like modified modern guns that they don't want to ruin and that shoot better than old ones, more safe or more fast or something than the old actual guns. But then those same people and then others collect the old guns. So there's cowboy guns that are literally historic. And then you get people that just want to own the guns from movies and stuff. That's valid. They want to have like Dirty Harry's gun or the gun from Tombstone or whatever, the guns from Heat or something. And all these different things. So go to these gun shops, figure out what their thing is, what they offer, so that you're just more capable when you're having conversations. If you really want to step it up a notch, go to the range and start to be that mortar between bricks. That everybody's voice matters because we all have our individual perspective on things, and we all have our individual reach, and we all have the time that we have, and we all have our place that we can reach to from, right? So it doesn't do us any good if we've got those rings from the Olympics, and 3 of them are over here and 7 of them are over there. I think there's 5. So, 3 of them over here and 2 of them over here. They need to be close enough to each other that they all link. So sometimes you can find yourself in a place where there is a missing link, and perhaps you can be a valuable strand or link or whatever you want to call, like, something that spans the divide between either 2 communities or 2 groups of people, or maybe it's between, in this case, a gun shop and a shooting sport. Maybe you go hang out and your thing is to go to gun shows and go to the different shoots and to, I don't know, hang out with reloaders, whatever it is you might be doing in your journey of being a firearms owner and shooter. and you figure out that, hey, this match needs a sponsor and this gun shop needs to get the word out, and they offer the same kind of stuff, or something. Consider like boots on the ground can be just some of that facilitating stuff, making it known, even if it's just introducing them in Instagram or something. So I think that one of the tactics we can, or one of the ways that we can defend against these tactics are to create awareness. And one of the ways we can do that is just knowing our community. And that's something that you either have to go figure out, or maybe it's time to go refigure it out, like see what's up today, see what's changed since the last time you made the rounds. If you've got a lot of gun shops, that could be a pain in the butt. Pick which ones are most close, or which ones are most useful for what you're trying to do. Or if you've only got a few gun shops, it can also be frustrating or difficult because maybe it's tough to get to them or something. But maybe that's worth the effort. Maybe talking to those gun shops. Most of the time, if they're not super busy trying to sell something to somebody, they're the opposite. They're bored. So maybe going in there and asking them, hey, is there anything that the community could do for the gun shop? The gun community. I don't think they get that asked that very often. And again, perhaps you're in a Facebook group or a forum or some kind of a sport chat where you're getting together for some reason, and you can let the interests of that gun shop be known, even if it's to a small group of people. We're talking about the grassroots. We're talking like dozens, hundreds, not even hundreds, dozens or a few people can make a big difference. If someone's going to make a decision to buy, I don't know, a reloading press, and you let them know, hey, this gun shop is not doing good, and they decide to buy the reloading press for $40 more from that gun shop instead of Amazon or something. I don't know if Amazon sells them on some online, reseller. Then maybe that helps that shop pay another bill this month, and now they're here for another month, and then somebody brings in an estate, and they're able to keep going for 2 more months because you were able to help them keep an electric bill going for a month. There's those kind of things. I'm just rambling here, so I don't know if this has been useful or just me rambling. But it is a tough one. There's a lot to it, and they're definitely insidious. Is that the right word? They're working against us, to like termites. They're working against our infrastructures and our foundations when they mess with the gun shops the way they're messing with them. We're about to get hit again. I don't know if you watch Crump's video.
No, I haven't seen anything from Crump. He's down in VA today, I think. Well, he's always in VA, but he's at Guns Out.
Yeah, the Guns Out shoot.
Yeah.
Did you think about going to that one, or was it too much this weekend?
Oh, it's just, no, I'm not going to make, I just got the vehicle back,
Yeah.
From the whole transmission thing. And plus, if I go down to Virginia, I'm going to my mom's house. So Guns Out will be one stop on the way down, but I'll get them next year, maybe.
But essentially, he said something to the fact that Biden's going to mess with what is a dealer, what qualifies to be a dealer, and they've already messed with the wording so that instead of being you have to make a profit predominantly from firearms, now it says something to the effect of if you make a transaction with the idea of making a profit or something as simple as that. So now all of a sudden, anybody that makes money selling a gun is technically supposed to be a dealer. It's ridiculous. So it's another thing that we're going to have to deal with, and another way that they're going to push for the stupid background checks, which they, again, are not questioned on. We say, oh, we shouldn't have them, but we don't ever educate people on why they're ridiculous wastes of money that, essentially promote the theater that government is all-knowing and can help if only it knew just a little bit more. Like, it's there to help us. If only it knew every single thing about all of us, it could help us as much as we could ask.
That's always the case. Yes, this wouldn't happen. These tragedies wouldn't happen. All you have to give up is a little more freedom, and every time it's a little more freedom you give up, we can stop this.
Just
and it's like that's
ended this one. Oh, this wouldn't happen with except for your freedoms.
Yeah, we need to know everything on the phone. We need to be able to do. And I'm like, you weren't able to stop Uvalde, and you were there. You weren't able to stop Parkland, and your government agents were there. You interviewed the kid 26 different times because of his violent tendencies, to the point the shooter could not be on school property unless He was invited, and law enforcement were there at the same time, and this still happened.
Well,
You
I mean,
allowed. I'm just saying. So don't tell me we have to educate people, like you said, on because and this happens in conversations, not on tweets online where you're going back and forth calling each other names. This has to happen in our social circles where you have time to actually have a conversation that goes deeper than name calling, memes, and bumper stickers.
well, I mean, you don't even have to rely on bringing up a specific um, atrocity, right? You
Hmm.
can instead just say, you want, or the suggestion here is that if you're doing any kind of transaction, you should be considered a gun shop. So that means that every transaction is suspect or whatever. But like you say, if their suggestion is, we need to do this for the safety, that you can rely on the state for your safety, then you don't even have to bring up the specific atrocities. You can just say, well, then why is there a resistance to bringing the state's security into the schools where the issue, you claim the issue is? And that's the glitch in their logic or their follow up, because they expect the state to be all protecting, but then they won't allow the state to go where they perceive the worst of the problems to be. And it's, that's one of the glitches. The media needs the gun free kill zones to, uh, create the target, because the media has created the narrative in order to get infamous. Here's what you need to do in 2023. You need to use this, you need to go here, and you need to do it just about right before here. This circumstance is ideal, and this is when we expect someone to come in and play this narrative for us. And no one's suggesting that. No one is challenging that uh, cause and effect that they're creating or that they've initiated and now continued on. But anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent.
It was
Uh,
100% true. Again, conversations is how these things change. Conversations is how we learn how others perceive things, and then we can have a conversation. We can't just assume everybody sees something a certain way. We actually have to talk to people.
Good point. And that's the other thing is, yeah, we know things because, we've been around for a while. That's one of the reasons we do this show. We have been around guns for a while, so we try to offer our perspective when we're actually answering specific gun questions. But same thing, like if we assume everybody knows XYZ about gun shops, well, one, that's dumb because maybe they don't know it. They never had
Mhm.
the ability to learn it. Or maybe, two, gun shops are different now and they're not the way we thought they were. And how will we know if we're not out there paying attention also? So, yeah, there's some there's always something to learn. Mike says, every time I go to my gun shop, I come out with something, even if it's just targets. Yeah, I'm always a fan of, buy something, especially not guns, because everything beside the guns are the things that are making the least amount of money on. So just going in
Mhm.
there and buying a thing. I like to buy used things because they typically get the used things and charge them up, 100% or something. So they're making money on the used thing, and I'm saving money on the used thing.
Mhm.
Everybody wins. And whoever it was that didn't want the used thing anymore probably traded it in for something and they're happy too, right? Or they just didn't want it anymore and they're happy that the gun shop is. So I like looking at the open boxes of ammo, the dollar bin. Well, I mean, not the dollar bin if you're trying to
Yep.
make some money, but the $10 bin, the 50. They've got a set of used gear or something.
Look at
And
the used gear.
used guns. They probably make more. They can potentially make more money on a used gun and give you a better cut. If they got $100 in a used gun and they're selling it for three, they can sell it for 125 and still make money. You know what I mean? And if you got that kind of
Mhm.
relationship, they're happy. Okay, I didn't make as much as I might have made if this gun had be sitting there for 6 months. But if you buy weird guns like me, then the gun shop is like, oh yeah, I'm happy to get rid of this weird gun anyway.
But
Basically, something
here's
weird.
something else doing that little bit of business can do for you at your gun shop. Let's say you go in. Okay, I had a thing for shotguns. I wanted to do a program of break barrel shotguns as a home defense or defensive firearm for somebody that's zero interest in being in guns. So I had to make it, just stone cold, super simple, Barney simple. Anyway, so I go there, and then sometimes I go through the used bins and check the used bins out and pick up things like, mag. mag holsters or mag holders or whatever you want to call it, and just different things like that. You pick it up, you talk to the people behind the counter, you see what's new, and you look at the guns you're interested in, and you make sure they know you and what you're interested in. So when something comes in, you may get a phone call out of the blue, like I did, when it came to getting a full size 357 Magnum, 686, because I wanted to introduce people to firearms using the 38 in a gun that big, so people can see it doesn't kick a lot. And another friend of mine was able, this is crazy, Wilson Combat 1911. They usually go new for around $4,000. They were able to pick it up for the gun store itself, purchased the gun for less than $700 from their previous owner. So when they sold it for $2,000. Whoever came in saved over $1,000, right? Because it was like almost a $4,000 gun. So they were happy. The gun store is ecstatic. And you have a Wilson Combat that doesn't have a lot of rounds to it because most people don't shoot those guns. Those are safe queens for most people. And I'm like, and if you work at the gun shop or, go there even more as a regular, you probably would have got it for even less. Nothing wrong with the gun store doubling their money on something that you're going to get it for a third or half the price. You still come out ahead. So that's how I look at that. Go to your gun shop, become a regular, become known. Let people know what you're about. Just don't go in, look around, and walk out.
Look for an excuse to buy them a pizza or donuts or something. Be like, hey, what do you like? What kind of pizza do you guys like? What kind of donuts should I get? Or something like that. Whatever's, maybe something local in town so you don't have to go to a chain and then everybody can appreciate it. And then, do that on Saturdays or Sundays. Saturdays when nobody wants to work anyway and maybe it's busy or something, and you bring in, maybe not a pizza, but, something like a box of something that can be eaten. Something local.
Yeah, get one of those box coffee things if the Dunkin' Donuts does, if these guys are coffee drinkers or ladies, whoever works there.
Yeah, exactly. And that can go a long way. And just if nothing else, it's just a way to say thanks and then to give them a little pat on the back for being part of the community and doing something that not everybody encourages them to do. And right now they're getting kind of wailed on. All right, so moving away from gun shops, I guess, a great topic though. Unfortunately for a bad reason, but a good topic. But 500 Magnum is saying I was mistaken. I thought the Undetectable Firearms Act was a done deal. Looks like we still might have a chance to stop. Please call your reps. So I forgot about this one was going through it. I assume because of what I heard that it was already done also. But if it has not yet gone through, this is again an opportunity that I will be pissed at. I already am pissed, but I would be even more pissed at the national level organizations if they're allowing this opportunity. Complaining about the Undetectable Firearms Act versus a massive awareness campaign of what 3D printing is all about and the potential. A ban on homemade firearms is a ban on innovation. It's a ban on just entrepreneurialism or creativity. It's ridiculous. It's a ban on capitalism. So the idea that it's bad for people to develop things or that only certain people should be able to develop things and only certain knowledge is available to the public and only certain knowledge should be able to be, that's scary stuff. So especially when we're talking about a device that's so prolific at this point, the 3D printer and the other versions of, what's that called, like additive production, like we're going to see other technologies, building things in metal. And again, there's the engineering and the metal and the materials and everything else in here is that kind of firearms have been a catalyst for other development throughout time. And why would we put an artificial political restriction on development of materials and technology and design and tooling, and I could keep going on and on. Chemistry, like so many things are involved when we're trying to create something that's intricate and is with the requirements that a firearm has, you're stressing a 3D printer out, you're stressing the materials out, you're stressing designs out. You're making people be creative and think, and the consequences of that is how we got Velcro and microwaves and Tang. When we go to achieve things that are difficult, is how we find all the positive consequences of it that allows society to move on, and how we're able to move from the country, the planet, at least from like the third world to the first world in a lifetime now, instead of 3 lifetimes like it used to take us, as countries and nations and areas and stuff. So, that's because we're able to figure things out. So this idea that guns are so bad, and using suicides essentially to justify that dumbass position that guns are so bad and people that like guns are so evil, again, demonizing, marginalizing a bunch of individuals for being aware of the danger of a piece of the device, and not being stifled or crippled by the fear of it, that those people are so bad, and that even the idea that they would be contemplating development or the evolution of their machines in their own homes is somehow evil and should be use the full power of the state to stop it. Again, that's we're leaving so much on the table if we just ignore that. It was so bad when we left it on the table when Glock was the only one at risk, because it's just Glocks. Oh, it's just plastic guns. Oh, it's just 9mm. Oh, it's just Europe. Oh, it's just Austria. I don't know, whatever excuse you wanted to say. Every other time the Tactical Firearms Act went through. But now, I don't even know if people are aware of what 3D printing, the potential of that is. But go look at Star Trek. Do you want the government to be in charge of replicators, or do you want, everybody to be in charge of replicators? That's essentially what we're talking about. You can't replicate these particular things, so therefore you can't replicate. That's what this law is saying. So anyway, I think this is something that should be rallying a bunch of people together. Not every single gun owner has to be involved, but every single gun owner that has any interest in any of the things that we're touching here would be enough to make this a squeaky wheel that they would know to never touch again, and would start teaching representatives what their boundaries are. And one of their boundaries is anything that touches us, right? Anything that touches our technology. But I hope that that's the case. And if it is, then, again, we have an opportunity here to educate each other, the masses, legislators, that just because someone can make a gun at home is not dangerous. Criminals can make guns at home right now, and it's just as dangerous as it was yesterday or it will be tomorrow. And that danger is perceived, not reality.
Yeah, there are very few, very, very few criminals running around 3D printing entire firearms. When you look at one, and it helps that if we educate ourselves. Oh, there's a huge increase in ghost guns, says the authorities, because they've changed the definition of ghost gun from what initially started as homemade firearms with their own, without serial numbers. Very few of those. So they changed it to anything that had its serial number defiled in any way, all of a sudden became ghost guns. Well, if you just change the definition, well, a whole bunch of other stuff falls in under that category. Oh, look at the increase. Well, you just changed it to include other things. So that's how they're getting away with that wordplay, and they're trying because they don't distinguish between those now. That's one of the things that people don't know. There is not a vast conspiracy. Listen, the people that get drugs in from every corner of the world, they can ship metric tons of drugs in, will be able to get firearms in too. Don't allow your TV shows to trick you into thinking all the drugs come in the country in backpacks, through borders, or internally on people that fly in from international destinations. We do not have an opioid problem in every city in America because people are sneaking drugs in their butt cheeks. This stuff is coming in cargo ships. We have a bigger problem. And they're using everything from suicides, like you said, to gangs shooting each other. Those two issues are over 90% of the firearms deaths they use as gun violence numbers. And we all know those two things aren't a gun problem. They are a much deeper problem.
Well, it's sad. I mean, it's yes, it's deeper, but it's so simple. It's just community building. Like what I'm pretty sure didn't Obama campaign on community building, and like I think even Bush, Thousand Points of Light, wasn't that essentially community building? Like, quit telling the federal government be the cure to your ails, quit having the state be the cure to your ails. Leave everybody alone. Let the local figure it out, and then maybe have some federal coordination or some like gleaning of good ideas. Hey, you know what worked good over here? Maybe try. Here's a list of good ideas. Here's a list of things that worked. Here's a list of things that didn't work, and then leave it at that. Anyway, I guess we're getting into politics, but I agree. It's just there's issues that either policy is created or that they feel they can't. Well, they probably feel what's the word? Unempowered to do anything about it because they're not capable, right? They're not ambitious to cure the real issues, and they're not able. Um, Maybe that's part of it, and so they figure, instead of fixing the issue, let's paint over uh, the results. Let's paint over the rust and not deal with the reason for the rust.
Yeah, well, that painting over the rest is fine if it doesn't include snatching our rights away, and that's the lie they keep telling all of us. And it's like, yeah, no.
Well, that's a good point. Honestly, we're only thinking about this because the paint is getting on our rights. But how
Hmm.
many times? And this isn't like just because of one community. This is all the problem. No, fuck all that. This is a whole bunch of issues, and probably because nothing else is touching on our rights, we don't even think about all the places that paint stuff over, which are all contributing to the issue. I know a lot of people say like, "Oh, keep them in jail." But keep fucking who in jail? And what the fuck? Jails aren't magic. Like
Oh my
plus
God.
movie or something. Like we have more people in jail now than any other country except Saudi Arabia or some shit, which is nothing to be proud of. And I'm not saying don't keep them in jail. I'm just saying like that's certainly not an answer. It might be different. I don't know. You've got more experience than me. Like if we took all the marijuana drug type of stuff that's nonviolent out of there, I have no idea if that's like 60% of the people in jail or if that's 10% of the people in jail. But like,
Non-violent drug charges are a significant part of the jail population.
but
And
it's not
and
like if
that's
you just could magically pull them out, put the violent people in, everything would be good. Because I think there's still a lot of violent people potentially.
well, it's a lot of violence associated with the drug business and the drug trade. And you can't separate the two. I mean, doing what I do, I've worked with dudes that were enforcers. He called himself a bodyguard, but they were enforcers for drug dealers. Another one was him and his friend were just getting high and had a crazy thought. Let's see what it's like to kill somebody because I'm high.
Oh shit!
And he did.
That's
And
fentanyl high though. That's not like
no, this was before fentanyl. This was just hanging out, being drunk, and being high.
oh
And
shit.
oh yeah, it was a whole. It was interesting the connection that was made because the kid that did it, I just started locksmithing. Just moved to Jersey, and if you're from out of state, especially you're not from like a city, you hear about Jersey, you think it's just crime riddled. So I did. So I came strapped with my 1911, two world wars. So I came and I brought that on jobs with me. I kept it in my vehicle. Well, it came in my vehicle when I went on jobs. 100% illegal, but I didn't care because they had a crime problem here. And in Jersey, they had, because I showed up in 93, January of 93, excuse me, November of 93, but January of 94, Camden, New Jersey had a person killed minimum every single day of the week, pretty much for the first month of the year. And that would be on the radio. And then this kid killed a pizza shop owner and and the pizza shop owner's best friend. And when you say it, most of us think pizza shop owner, 40-something-year-old guy. No, this kid was 27 years old, had worked in pizza shops his whole life since he was a kid, scraped his money together, and opened his own shop as a 26-year-old. Got his best friend to come in with him and help him deliver. They got a call from the person that would be this inmate eventually. Said, yeah, we'd like the pizza delivered to this address. Well, the young man that owned the shop knew the area and was like, that sounds sketchy. I'll go with you to deliver this pizza. And the criminals ambushed him there and killed them both. And that was the radio story I heard that guaranteed as a service worker that I was carrying every day. And fast forward X number of years, I'm working in the shop and I get introduced to him. And I tell him that story that he was the reason I was carrying. He was like, dude, I was high and I didn't know what I was doing. If you would have had a gun and I showed up, you'd have got me. Because really, I was totally out of my mind. Don't even know what I was doing. And it's very rare somebody who does the job I do that I get to talk to the bad guy. You know what I mean? As a defensive firearms instructor and a defensive instructor, to talk to somebody that actually pretty much got me to carry every day and to hear his side of it. And just to let you know, he'd probably be getting out soon. So he did from this time. He was.
If you're talking about it, he was what, a kid, 16?
He was 17, 16, 17 in 93. And he's working and getting out now. Look, without the drugs, and again, with maturity, dude's in his 40s, understand he totally destroyed his own life, became saved, if you want to believe it or not. That's up to you. Actually, it's not up to you, but it's up to you if you believe it. But became saved, Christian, whole thing, and learned a trade. Learned a trade that he's doing in prison, and that has applications on the outside world. So I have no idea whether he'll get out or not, but that's where he's on his way to. But that's neither here nor there. What we're talking about was drugs and the influence and things like that on how many inmates are there. Some are there for selling. Some are there like him. He got high and did something stupid while he was high. Some do crazy things for drug money. So anyway, that's a drug problem. It's way deeper than just a gun problem.
So then that's interesting, though, because it's the time frame. I mean, obviously the actions and the consequences there's no way to repay that.
Mm-hmm.
You've killed people, right? And you've killed young people that were promising, and it's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And so we either are a country or a people, we do anything bad, and then we've decided it. Now you're dead, right? And then every time we're wrong, we just go around killing people also, which I'm not a big fan of. Or we let people pay, right? And then, so I guess what I'm going to say is, it's as you were describing that, I'm thinking 16-year-old kid, one time making a dumbass. I mean, how many dumbass things you do when you're 16? Obviously not things that end people's lives, but you do dumbass things when you're 16 because that's how you learn not to do dumbass things, right? But so somebody decides to do something horrible like that, and they're not like evil. If they're not broke, I mean, if they're broke and they're like, oh, I don't care, I'll do it again. You know, I don't care. If they're weird, if they're broke, that's different. But if it's just oh man, what do we do? 16 years later or whatever, 20 something years later, and don't think that person is saved. Well, they're either in jail, broke, and they're just killing each other and doing weird things, which I think anyone would know if you're in there with them, right? Or the people watching them, right? If they've actually done their what do you want to say, like serve their time, I guess the way to say it. I think that person has all the right in the world to get the hell out of there and prove themselves to get the fuck out of there, so that they can probably be, I can imagine that person would have a lot of interest in the rest of their life, making sure that some other little kid didn't follow that dumbass path, right? And they have some potential there for some real reach and some real ability to get out there. You know, not everybody, but I'm saying that the way we're hearing the story or whatever, it sounds like there's a lot of potential there for good out of that bad.
Having conversations with him. All right. Again, I think it's an amazing opportunity to be able to talk to somebody like this and have worked with them pretty much the entire time I've been employed there. So a decade and a half. Dude's been there 30 years. He's been locked up for 30 years from the time he was 17 until now. So the guy's coming up on 50. He's in really good shape. You know what I mean? Thin guy. But he's looking forward to getting out eventually. He thinks he can see the exit door. So I've had conversations with him Um, and so is my partner. My partner was better at it. My partner was like, why don't you take some of these like alcohol treatment classes and other things so when you go up for parole, they can see you took these classes? And he was like, no. He was like, I was an alcoholic and I'm not going to be admit, to having an alcohol problem. He's like, I didn't. I was hanging out with somebody I just met 2 days earlier, getting high and doing drugs. And an intrusive thought popped in my head that we both ran with. I'm doing my time, but I'm going to do it my way. And that's what he did. I mean, prison choir, the whole thing. So you can either believe he's rehabilitated or you don't believe he's rehabilitated. But how long do you keep a dude who made a mistake actually committed a horrible crime when he was a child? How long do you pay for it? How many lessons do you teach? I mean, you can keep him locked up for the rest of his life. We have guys that are done horrific things that should be locked up, should never breathe free air. And then you got this dude. Do you measure them the same?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what the measurements are, but I definitely think there should be measurements for each
Mm-hmm.
case. So then the big question is, this guy does whatever he needs to do to. I'm assuming there's a parole board just from the movies and shit.
Yeah.
Assuming he does everything he needs to do and he gets out. Does he get his gun rights back? And I don't know what happens, but I'm saying, do you think he should get his gun rights back or have to prove it somehow for some probation period or never?
Well, either you're free or you aren't if you did your time. Either you're free or you aren't. So I think you should get your rights back. Some people go, if you committed a violent crime, you shouldn't get your rights back. Hey, that's neither here nor there. I just fall back on the Bruin thing. What was the rule back in 1879? I mean, if I'm going to use it to be able to carry, constitutional carry, then we're going to have to use it across the board, or we're going to be the hypocrites too.
Yeah, I think that guy needs to be able to, because he's probably not going to get out and then move to a nice neighborhood. He's going to get out and have to deal with whatever he can deal with as he's working his way up. And
yeah, you have a 30-year gap in your work record there, but that you're going to have to explain to somebody, and a lot of people don't want that. Luckily, the job he qualifies for, it's a skilled but manual labor job. You know what I mean? And we're short on those across the nation.
But he'll be in demand. But I'm just saying he'll take some time before he's got money to get to a good neighborhood. So I think he should have the ability to defend himself and his stuff, as he's out and doing his thing. Again, it's not broken people that are twisted and haven't proven themselves done, doing whatever they need to do to get out.
Yeah, I mean, I had to check myself with the guy. There was a few of them that were locked up that you have conversations with, and you're like, whoa. But then you have to understand, the guy you're meeting now is not the person that committed that crime. High, drunk, passion, inflamed, whatever you want to call it. Not the same person. This is a person that just woke up this morning, had breakfast, and came to work with you. You know what I mean? In the prison. Because we have maintenance guys in the prison that are inmates. I don't think most people even know that. They see the TV shows and see people making drivers, what do you call it? License plates or doing laundry. But no, they're dudes that actually have skills, plumbers, electricians, things like that are inmates. They learn that trade in prison.
But then, they're doing home ec classes, and it's just in house, or do they then go out and do?
No, they don't go out in the world. They do the work in the prison. But my thing is, they do that work in the prison. They can't earn. I don't think they earn a license there, but they do the work, and they can when they get out.
Yeah, and then they're competent. So if they're on a job site, they know something about what's going on, and it's not I'm an ex-con and I know how to figure all this shit out, and all that. Yeah, I can imagine it's helpful. Plus, it gives you something to do while you're in there instead of going nuts, right?
I mean, that is important for a lot of people. A lot of it is crazy the things you assume before you go to work in a prison. Because I'm a hardcore, do the time, do the crime. I'll be crying. This is what you did. Now firearms, laws, I feel that are just victimless crimes because you're carrying, that's horse crap. But I'm talking about you kill somebody, that you did it, dude. You got to do your time. Then when I get in there, you understand there's a whole bunch of circumstances and everything is not black and white. And then there's some people who went, man, I messed up so bad. All right, this is funny to me. Maybe it's a messed up situation, but one of the guys in there was a cook. Like he ran a restaurant. He was a chef. It was his restaurant. Now he's in the prison making food for inmates on a unit. My partner and I meet him, and you can have conversations. And finally, my partner asked, "What are you down for?" And he said, "I killed my mother-in-law." And my partner went, "Wow, this time in, I mean, how long you been down?" And he was like, I've been locked up for 20 years. He said, "I'll probably never get out of here." I was like, "Do you regret?" He said, "Do you regret doing it?" And he's like, "Nah, not at all. But you'd have to know the bitch." He said, "You'd have to know her to understand." I'm like, wow, that's a dude that's doing his time gladly. And when you think, yeah, you think somebody's going to be sitting there regretting every moment of it. And this guy was like, nah, not at all. And I'm just sitting there looking at him like, this is nice, funny, jovial dude who just said he took his wife's mom out and he doesn't regret it in the least bit. And I'm like, well, that changes your attitude about like what some of these, like you think everybody's in there going into their cell at the end of the day, staring at the wall. You know what I mean? Going, man, I made it hard. No, not at all.
Yeah, like regretting it and
yeah, like every second of it.
And stuff.
Yeah, watching It's a Wonderful Life and having a tear run down the corner of his eye because he'll never. It's like, no, not at all. And I'm like, holy crap! Like the stuff like that happens to make you go, man. TV shows and the movies, they're real simple with what this is, with their moral thing. Either it's all good or all bad. You know what I mean? It's some injustice or it isn't. And it's like, nah, it goes between everything. One of the guys I work with killed his mom and his stepdad because he spent about $25,000 of their money that he stole while they were on vacation for 2 weeks on weed. And was afraid of what they were going to do. So when they came home, he killed them.
Holy crap.
Like, bro, but like you could have just paid him back. It was your mom, bro. And of course, he was like, I was stupid. I was scared. I was high. He was like, there's just no excuse. Well, I didn't know what he did. I didn't know what he did because you got to be careful when you ask people what they're locked up for. So you approach it a certain way. And he was like, I said, do you regret what you did? And if given a chance to do it over, would you do what you did? Now, again, this is not knowing. And he looked at me, he went, hell no, I wouldn't do it again. And he was like, okay. It's interesting because, again, a lot of us.
There's mistakes and like just being, well, whatever, we're getting on all kinds of topics, but
yeah.
There's certain things that you can't take back, and yeah, when there's more than one or multiple people involved, you don't get to just be like, "Oh, my bad."
Well, I think it's good for some of us because, again, we have a lot of gun people here, the firearms instructors, they're advocates and everything, but I think a lot of us don't ever come in touch with the real criminals we're telling people to be aware of, the criminals that we're getting blamed for their crimes. You know what I mean? Like many of us will never have these conversations that I have the ability to have on a daily basis. And it will, it doesn't make a difference if they're at your house at midnight, hey, double tap. You know what I mean? Shoot for cinemas, do whatever you have to do to save your life and the people that you love. But when it comes to understanding him, I think with Dr. William April, he was not only an instructor, but he would talk about the mentality of criminals because he worked in the system also, in corrections also, to learn like these people's thought process, like even how they get the firearms, what they think about armed citizens. I've asked all those questions, and criminals are terrified of citizens that are able to freaking protect themselves because we don't have the same rules as police do. I don't have to tell you freeze, put your hands up, and take you into custody. You know what I mean? I have to defend me and mine. And pretty much if they're no longer with us and nothing's on video, the story that gets told by me is probably going to be the one that's accepted as fact. and they're aware of that. They don't want armed resistance.
Yeah, they know that, right? Like they know that everything about it is they're in the wrong, and they're going to just be seen as the dead bad guy.
Yeah, they're going to be the dead bad guy, but they also understand if they take off, again, it ain't our job to arrest these guys. So if they take off, they know they'll get away. The reason many of them open fire on the police is because they know the cops are going to chase them. So you're in for a penny, in for a pound. With us, you jump back out that window. I don't care where you go. You know what I mean? If I tell you to get out of my house and I'm pointing a firearm at you and got the flashlight on you, get out. You jump back out, bye. I do not care where you're at. And they know that. But yeah, they do not want armed resistance at all. And again, that's conversations that I had with a few of these dudes because I'm a Second Amendment advocate and I talk about it.
Well, when you were talking about it before, I was going to say that the weird, sad, strange, messed up part about this all is that somebody can be a normal kind of good kid, maybe even, trying to do something, wrong idea, bad circumstances, whatever, find themselves climbing in the window of some place, and now they're the unknown bad person climbing in the window of some place, and the person inside of there has no obligation to understand their motives other than this is someone who's busting into the wrong place at a time when it's not appropriate, and that kid can either get killed, can get the shit scared out of them, or kill. And the reality was they went in there to steal a beer or to grab a cell phone that they saw on a table, something essentially harmless, lightweight, not a big deal, but then it immediately turns crazy lethal. And that's the stuff, that could be a normally good kid who just was trying to do something dumb, and now all of a sudden there's there are consequences that are long term. And that's the start. How do you determine that from the kid who's broke, who's gonna who's pushing it constantly, and this was just the time they got caught out of the hundreds or thousands of other times they were pushing it. And as soon as you let them go reckless, they're gonna just keep pushing it until somebody really gets hurt, type of shit. And we can't solve all of that, but it's just like I say, that's the messed up part, is that's
See,
that's what happened.
it's deeper. I don't know, deeper, more complicated, because it's simple and it's complicated. What do you call it? Okay, I've been blessed. I am aware of the friends I've made, the people I know, the contacts I've made allowed me to look at things from a different perspective. One of the guys that we worked in our home hardening and also our lethal force is corrections, an instructor in the academy, but he's worked in the prisons. So when he's giving us when we came up with scenarios for the hardening of the home, not hardening of the home, but scenarios for home defense with a firearm. We came up with scenarios and people didn't understand. It wasn't somebody coming in to rape and murder. You know what I mean? Everybody that breaks in your house ain't a pirate. It could be, like you said, they just trying to steal your medicine out of your medicine cabinet because they know it's a senior citizen in the home, or somebody with a handicap plate. That's why they're there. They're probably not a violent criminal, but they may become one if they feel threatened. And it ain't your job not to make this person feel threatened. Never forget that. But you don't know. There's three kinds of people. There's one, this is what he put out there. There's three kinds of criminals that break into your home. There's one that thought the place was empty. And the minute they see you or even hear you walking down the hallway going hello, they're getting out of there. That's the one that you found the door open and nobody in the house. That was that guy. Then there's one that figures he can bullcrap his way through if you catch him. And he's going to do that, but he's not going to be violent because he's not that dude, or he only might get violent if he feels cornered. That's why a lot of self-defense and defensive firearms instructors tell you it's not your job to hold someone for the police. You're taking on a totally different responsibility when you're doing that. and a risk to yourself. I think James Yeager was one of the best when he said it this way. He said, consider those people cancer and you want them as far as possible away from your family. So you don't want to hold them there, but that's up to you understanding the whole thing. He said, but then there's this third person. This third person does not care. This third person is not afraid of you, your firearm, or the consequences of taking you out or hurting you and your family. And you got to be prepared for person number three, because none of them wear t-shirts let you know whether they're 1, 2, or 3. And that's how you have to go into your situation. And having met these dudes on the other side, it's 100% true. And I think for me, that helped me be a better instructor, or at least give me more perspective than I had before.
Who's the doctor you said was doing the research? Is that new, or was
Dr.
that
William April? He was around for a while. He passed away actually right before he came to Jersey. I was actually talking to him, and he was due to come in. Yeah, Dr. William April. He actually wrote books. You can still find his stuff on YouTube. It's really, really worth looking at.
Okay, yeah, that would be pretty cool. I wonder if G23 has seen that stuff. So then, because he's into that topic for sure for his shows. Woods is I'm switching the topics now. We've got a poll going though. Should ex-felons get their gun owners' rights back? Either yes, but only the non-violent ex-felons, and then not sure and no way. So right now the votes are going towards yes, which is interesting. I think this is, even though it's kind of became the topic kind of from just organically here as we're chatting, I think this one would be an interesting conversation again, maybe for G23 to take on if he's listening out there, because he likes again this topic. But since it seems like a lot of gun owners I know have this opinion, we never talk about it. And I have seen, it's not like I watch Every Town or nothing or Moms Against, but I see people like Mom at Arms who bring it up, and I've seen that those antis will suggest that gun owners can't tolerate the idea of whatever. And they're always wrong. They're always super like racist or whatever when they suggest these things, because they're not paying attention to gun owners and how essentially open-minded we are, because we don't give a shit. It's not like we're open-minded. We just aren't closed-minded. You know what I mean? Like it's not like everybody is one or the other. Some people just don't fixate on this stupid shit. So we don't divide each other, and we don't think about, and most of us watch cowboy movies. And I think almost every gun owner I've ever known has the opinion of, when you get out of jail, they give you your fucking guns back, and you're expected to not go shoot up the town, right? Because you've learned your lesson. You're moving on. You're not in jail anymore, so let's behave or whatever. And when you give people that respect, what happens? Except for the broken ones, they all, that's all they need. In jail. Like, they're embarrassed. They're out of, they learn their lesson and they're done. Like, allow people to learn to serve their time. Like, what the hell? Sure, there can be more heinous things, but again, if you throw a cigarette down, it rolls underneath of a turpentine rag, and that flips over to a tanker, and a bunch of nuns and orphans die in a bus, like over a bridge, and then a ship liner of baby seals explodes. Like, that's horrible, but you didn't plan that, I mean, you did really not know that was about to happen, and it all happened. Like, should you really be in jail for the rest of your time? Does that solve anything? Living in a state or in a country or in a situation where if you make a mistake, there's that kind of consequence, and there's no like tolerance for, you're allowed to make mistakes. And even if they're horrible, it sucks, horrible things happen, but try to move on with your life, knowing that happened should be your punishment. Right. But that's what I'm using a crazy, ridiculous example, but to be honest, like, is that different than a lot of circumstances? Again, I mean, that thing that happened that you mentioned was nowhere near that light, but at the same time, 35 years later, who's really winning here? How much did we spend to keep that guy, to teach that one dude a lesson? Did it really stop anyone from doing anything in that time? Did some kid go, well, I could spend 40 years in jail? Did a whole bunch of reckless shit happen in that 50 years? And I mean, I understand that it can solve sometimes, but I think if we had judges that paid attention and weren't just either held to have to do everything, but if we had judges that could look at somebody and go, no, you're broke, you need to go to jail. Or like, you know what, kid, you need to go to jail for tonight and you're never going to be back here again. Like, let that happen.
Yeah. Dude, we had, and each one is individual. And I think one of the issues we have to face as a free nation, as a nation that has the laws we do, or at least the foundation that we do, is do we really mean it? Does prison really rehabilitate? Can you pay for your sins? Can you ever have redemption? I think that's one of the things that we have to answer. And as firearms owners, they want people to freaking pay attention to the Bruin decision. And we go, well, why can't they just do that? Then we need to understand that you get out, you get your rights back. Don't let out broken people. You know what I mean? Pay more attention. Don't let feel good stuff get all caught up in it. And pay attention to what these dudes do when they're in. I think that's a lot of things that, again, it's some of the stuff you don't know if you're not inside. You don't know if you don't have this relationship. And it's not like I know everything. I'm talking about stuff I pick up on a periphery while doing my job. I see and have conversations with, officers there, with psychs there, with psychiatrists there, with social workers. Like those are my work friends. So these are the conversations we have. Because many of them, I mean, I've trained at one time between me and my partner, we trained the entire psych department in basic handgun, some even in rifle and shotgun. So they know what I am and they know what my stand is. And we do have these conversations. Sometimes it gets uncomfortable. Sometimes I get angry and I don't speak to people for a couple of days because it's ticking me off. But we do have these conversations and we learn that things are more complicated and a lot of people have empathy and sadly some have sympathy for these inmates. And I'm like, yeah, you got to pump the brakes on that one. I can understand your situation, but I don't have to sympathize with it because that's where you get into manipulation by the inmates. And that's something you have to be careful with.
Wow, we have got a lot of comments. So we're definitely not getting over to the database of questions. The show is
Sorry about that, man.
No, this is what the show is all about. Because otherwise it would be kind of boring if we just did boring. At least for me, it would be super boring if we just did gun questions all the time. I am too old for just gun questions, I think. But we do have AskGunQuestions.com, and it's been around since 2007. And you can ask questions over there, and they go into a database. And normally on Saturdays, I'm going to say 1 or 2 Saturdays out of the month at this point, we'll go in and we'll look at that database and we'll read whatever questions have come up and we'll give you our opinion. Clover is an old man and he dropped his laptop into some soup, so it's broken, and it's going to take him a while before his next Social Security check comes in and he can buy another laptop. So I'm guessing that's why he's not in here. But since we've just been kind of riffing here, that's what the show's all about. But I'm going to say we've got like 14 questions coming in that kind of go back onto the topic. So I starred them all over in the side there, but I can't try to put them in order. So we're going to kind of jump around here, jumping on different rungs because it kind of goes back and forth. Mm-hmm. But the next one up is Woods was saying, to a related question he said a long time ago, should Bass Pro's Cabela size stores are they in on the fix to kill? Okay, so are the large, I guess what he's saying is like big box gun shops / outfitters / outdoor stores, are they in on the fix to kill off the independent gun stores, or is that tinfoil hat?
I mean, I'd say tinfoil hat before we found out that, Springfield Armory in 2017 tried to get a deal.
Yeah, that literally was working some shady crap that wouldn't allow any other gun shops in Illinois to do their thing unless they were in this club that they were the only members of. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So some of them are.
I think that I worked at a Barnes and Noble that had a Starbucks in it, and I worked at the Starbucks, so I got to see the Barnes and Noble happen around me, and that was when Borders, remember Borders store? So yep. Barnes and Noble came into town, and then there was a Borders, and they were like across the street from each other, essentially, if I remember this right. And then every other bookstore in town. And I live in a town with there's 2 universities in Arizona. The other one, the one in Phoenix, is the party school. So I live in the town with the nerds, with the nerd school where all the nerds go for science. And I think we have sports, but it's mostly a nerd school and a medical school and shit. So there's a lot of bookstores here. And I didn't grow up here, but I went to school here, and I went, I went through school and as an adult, like with these bookstores, and I kind of assumed they'd be here because they sell a lot of textbooks and a lot of these books that students would buy to, research and delve into all the different aspects of stuff. And I know there's a lot of used books kind of circulating through Tucson. A lot of retired people here, and when those people pass away or just sell their stuff or trade in their stuff, there just happens to be a lot of flow of used books and stuff here. And then Borders when Barnes and Nobles came in, not a big difference. As soon as the Borders came in, boom, every little bookstore closed because nobody went into the little bookstores anymore. The only thing that happened was there was literally a giant used bookstore the size of like a grocery store, and they had like 3 locations that were the size of a grocery store, so like giant used bookstores. They took up the slack of the used, and then these Borders and Barnes and Noble just sucked up all the new stuff. So that was in the book realm, and obviously only certain people need books, but every once in a while you need a book, like as a gift or like a cookbook, or like every once in a while you need a book. So you got to go to a bookstore. At least some people perceive it that way. And this was before the internet, I guess. But I don't know if that was intentional or if it was just the consequence of them coming in, or if it was inevitable. I guess that's the word, right? Like the idea that people want stuff. They're sick of having to depend on little tiny guys who, I don't like that kind of book, or I can't afford to get every book, or oops, I forgot that book. When you can have a superstore that says, oh, I already have the book already 99% of the time, or if I don't, I can get it to you tomorrow. People, why would you go to a little store anymore? And then they started offering, like they brought us in to do coffee and everything. So people started getting addicted literally to a addicting drug that was being sold in the store. And you were encouraged to sit there reading your book while you drank these addictive drugs that we would offer at a huge markup. And again, I think there's a massive mirror there or whatever to the gun community. I don't know if it's intentional or if it's inevitable or if it's whatever, but I think that it's to our advantage to value the gun store because of its just, the variety and the nuance and the knowledge and the experience and all the good things that superstores can't bring, because we got the internet now. So why would you need a Cabela's really when you got online? But that's just me. I know a lot. I understand you've been at enough Cabela's and Bass Pros. They're amazing experiences. I'm glad they exist, I guess. But would I rather have a Bass Pro than all the little shops? Nah, I'd rather have all the little shops. Like I'll get rid of all the Denny's and McDonald's and go back to like every town I go into is going to have a different kind of pancakes. I value that. Like I don't really value having the same Denny's pancakes every time I want to eat pancakes. I kind of think of that as prison. Like that seems kind of horrible to me. Every morning, no matter where I am, I wake up and get pancakes. It's going to essentially be the same, down to like the layout of the restaurant and the waitresses, outfits. Like, nah, I'd rather every time I woke up in a different town, I'm going to experience some different pancakes, right?
Yeah. Look, having those mom and pop shops, it's interesting to me because again, the time frame that we've been in the gun thing, right? It just happens to be that's when we were born and that's what we're into. To watch it go from mom and pop shops nearly everywhere with only a few big gun stores to like a lot of big gun stores and mom and pops are shutting down. And to watch how it changes. Also in that time frame, the internet came up and I can buy from the internet. But it still has to go through an FFL. So now who do I go to? Do I go to Cabela's? Well, Cabela's could sell me this firearm for whatever. They might have one in stock. You know what I mean? If you don't ask for something too crazy. They might have it in stock. It's a little more expensive. Plus, they're going to add a fee to it anyway if I have it sent to them. I don't even know if they do it. Can you order something from somewhere else and have it shipped to the Cabela's? I don't know. But I know mom and pop stores or regular FFLs do add a fee. My guy only adds $45, but that's also including the background check he has to get done. So he doesn't really take advantage of you as long as you make sure you take care of it. But I think
Sorry,
some
my
of
thing's not
these,
working. I don't know if I've ever bought anything like a gun at a Cabela's. I may have, but I
yeah,
have to.
no clue. But I look at it this way: the Cabela's, if they're not overtly, and I'm using Cabela's just like he did, but any big box store, they also may be supporting that legislation that gets others shut down on a local and state level. Again, a la Springfield Armory, also Dick's on a national level, pulled all their guns out, in a shady way because they put them in Field and Stream. And then eventually they got rid of them. But I still remember Troy signed a big deal with Dick's to put Troy ARs in all the Dick's stores across the country right before whichever shooting got Dick's to all of a sudden say guns were bad and they weren't going to sell them. But what they did was a shady thing and put them in another part of another branch of their, Dick's empire, and they started selling them there. So yeah, these people who you give money to that are anti-gun in the big box stores and run by boards and CEOs, yeah, they could be in on a fix at the drop of a hat. And if
And
you're
that's
a local
like
FFL's, go
that
ahead.
Dick's guy made a big point about like, oh, I don't like these guns and blah blah blah, and we're gonna lose six whatever money. And I remember looking at some of the news where it was like, well, they were losing money all the time because nobody buys guns there anyway. So essentially, they made a business decision to not sell something that wasn't selling in such a way to suggest that that was like a virtue signal, we'd say, or like essentially marginalizing the ownership of firearms to suggest like, yes, we agree as gun retailers that guns are the problem. And this isn't just a financial thing because we can't sell guns for shit. Like we don't know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, we have somehow determined with our insider knowledge that guns are the problem, and we agree. And you can use our expertise and insight to really agree, or whatever, like to stand on this position, this incorrect position that just the object is the problem here, and by us not selling the object, we're heroes and we're solving the problem, and we're not just removing something from our bottom line that is losing us money because we suck so bad at selling it because we don't
Mm-hmm.
understand the product, and we thought we could just sell to any gun owner because gun owners are dumbass mouth breeders or whatever they thought of us.
Yeah, yeah, they just played everybody, and I mean, what they did was guarantee I'd never go in their store. Of course, the way they handled me buying ammo, because I did that once for a class, that I had to get something because it didn't come in like it was supposed to. That was another issue. I'd ordered it and it didn't ship. So now, oh, it's coming. Oh, it's coming. Oh, it's coming. Oh, now I got to go do work with Dick's. And it's like, yeah, I have to purchase this. The guy has to box it up behind the counter in the gun section in like what do you call one of those big like plexiglass boxes? He puts it in a plexiglass box the size of a shoebox, the ammo, and has to carry it like it's nuclear freaking materials. And he's the only one that can handle it through the store to the front counter. And then the lady at the front counter unlocks it with the key and rings me up. And then I can take it out of the store. I'm like, I'm from the South where I go into Walmart, pick this up on the shelf right between the freaking, camouflage socks, camouflage socks and the bows. I pick up the shotgun ammo, walk to the front and ring it up or ring it out in the sports department. I'm like, you guys have made this thing all complicated. I don't want to do business with this place. I mean, that was the last time I was in the Dick's. Like, I won't
Well,
buy
and
anything
again,
from.
that's how you treat your customers. You made the decision to sell the product, and then you're going to treat your customers as if there's some sort of violent whatever they are that can't be trusted, right? And you've got to do this procedure which makes them uncomfortable and makes everybody else in the store wonder why this whole procedure is happening. And again, if they're waiting to get air on their basketball, they're thinking, damn gun owners and their procedures for their bullets. They don't care about any, it's all perception to
Mhm.
create this bullshit scenario. So
Like,
yeah,
I have something dangerous. Oh, and by the way, they made sure before I even touched anything. And when I asked about it, I had to present my driver's license and firearms ID card. So you know who I am and what I am. you have a copy of my ID. So it's not as if I give you all this and then I'm going to run out with the box of 12 gauge.
Yeah.
It's like, what the heck? Bro, it
Anytime
is.
I hear about papers, I grew up where show me your papers was what's the word, like
A trope. A
yeah,
trope from
about the
movies about
Nazis
Nazis.
and the
Yep.
fascists, because our grandparents had dealt with that and literally cut throats so that the world didn't have to live like that. And then you get people that now want to potentially lean into it. Either they think it's cool, but more than likely they're just not thinking about it, right? They just don't understand the implications of that. How it's going to be like, oh, why? Let me show you your papers. Where are you driving to, comrade? How much gas do you expect to get out of this pump, comrade? You know, who gave you authority to drive 200 miles this month?
Exactly. I'm like, you understand it's a slippery slope. You don't, you aren't safe. Government having all your information doesn't make you safer. They just tell you you're safer to get more of your freedoms.
We all know what makes you safer is when they put stuff in a big ass plexiglass clear container and walk it up to the front so that nothing
Yeah.
dangerous can happen.
Yeah, when the 18-year-old who I could chuck into the friggin' ball pit and take my stuff out of the store and he'd be struggling to get out. Yeah, when he brings it up because I'm following behind him, like, this is, I hadn't been that mad in the store for a long time. Like, it was like, wow, you guaranteed I will not buy anything here. I don't care what you have. I don't care.
I had a Walmart that, you know, they take pictures of you because they make you self-serve now. It's not like you have a choice. You work for Walmart as you go to leave the store now. You have to work as a cashier. And then they record you working as a cashier. So they have a visual record of it, obviously, because they're watching you. And then they didn't like the way I scanned shit. So they like tagged 3 of my scannings as ripping them off.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, what the hell, Walmart? Like, one, there's no training here. Where's the fucking up
Mm-hmm.
training? I never got trained on how to use your stupid ass scanners. And then I always buy stuff that's on, what do you call it, clearance. So it's like, your idiots put the scanner thing in the wrong place and it scans the wrong price or whatever. And I'm trying to hold my finger over it to get the real scan, you know, the discount price. Is that my problem? Like, I'm supposed to be told that I'm not supposed to hold my hand here? So, yeah, it's annoying, but yeah, what are you going to do? Soon we'll just be able to walk in and the robots will know what we're taking and we won't have to scan anymore.
Well, I never thought I'd be that guy, right? I used to see the older people not figure out the scanner because I never liked using it. I don't want to work for the store for free. I mean, I don't understand why that's the one thing I'm supposed to do for free. Like, I don't go to the restaurant, run in the back, and make my own sandwich. Why am I doing the checkout here? But anyway, so I just act like I'm confused every time. I'm sorry, you're going to have to bring this up. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not doing it. I don't have, I mean, I have time. Unless I have zero time, like something is happening immediately and I have to get to it. Like this show or the other shows that I do. And I'm like, oh, damn, I don't have time to wait this line behind, somewhere with 87 items in the regular checkout. I think I've done it maybe 3 times. I've used a self checkout since they've been doing it, regardless of the store. I just won't do it.
A lot of times, well, by me at least, there won't be a regular checkout. There'll be one often, but in a lot of stores, not a lot of stores, some stores where they have the self, they're just, especially Walmart's, they're like, they use it maybe at Christmas or something.
Nope. I'll set at Walmart and I'll wait. I'll wait behind people with 2 baskets. Just pull out the phone and start watching the video. Yeah. I refuse. And I love it because one part is like, oh, you refuse, you're still giving them your money. I'm like, I had no problem giving them my money, just not over there. I'm not even getting a discount. Give me a discount. That's the
thing. It should be a discount. Yeah, it should be a discount.
Yeah, give me a discount. You're saving on how many employees? Every one of these kiosks, you're saving on 1 employee. Actually, you're saving on multiple employees because, shift work. So at least those machines count at least for 3 people. You're saving that money. I should save some of it too. Because my only other way of saving is putting this in my sock and walking out with it.
Well, the other
100%
thing that
discount.
they'll do is they'll have like 4 people standing there to watch 2 of us self checkout, and it's like, really,
Hmm.
you fucking
Yep.
couldn't just walk over there and run a line. So anyway, without
Yep.
complaining about Walmart,
Old
um,
people.
Woods is saying related should Bass. Oh, we already talked about this one.
Hmm.
Now 500 is saying it looks like they're pushing the 1,000% tax increase BS again. So what is that? 1,000% on ammo or on guns or both?
It makes no difference. You can't freaking tax a right out of existence. They will lose that. And I think the way to attack that is just go with the elitism, the one percenters. Just call it what it is. It's a poll tax. It's a reading test at the voting booth. It's all of that that you have to pay to exercise a natural right. And that's a no go. And anybody that signs up for it and co-signs, you should call them, contact them. This thing is never about your safety. Don't tell
Right on.
me that
So
again.
I like
Again,
how
the people
you're
that
able.
commit. Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm interrupting you.
Oh, I'm just saying. Don't tell me you're trying to save lives when again 90% of the gun violence deaths, 60 are suicide, 30 are criminals that will pay whatever to get their ammo. The suicides only need one round. So you're not going to price that out. So again, over 90% of the gun violence deaths will not be affected by any 1,000% law at all.
Damn, dude. So I was gonna say, I love the way you were able to just hear that, immediately dismiss it, and I'm gonna talk about that in a second. But then that second point you brought up to actually challenge the concept that the 1,000% might sound look good on the surface, but it shows how irrelevant and how simply on the surface the other side is looking at this. Because, like what Tony just said, it's not going to prevent 90% of the issues that actually exist, and it doesn't even do anything to the other side except persecute people financially for even participating, and it would put industries out of business. But without all those justifications, the way that you're able to just immediately, I don't want to say blow it off, but like understand that this is
Something else
it's
under
not
another
a
name.
red herring, but it's like, just a concern about a thing that doesn't need to be concerned. It doesn't need the level of concern. I was going to ask this anyway, since we're chatting. You were recently at that New Jersey. Was it the New? Was it? It wasn't DC
Mm-hmm.
Project. It was like New Jersey ladies or something, right? Or was it
So it
DC
was,
Project?
yeah, it was DC Project New Jersey.
Okay, so you recently attended an event where, you rub elbows with people all the time, but you recently attended an event with these ladies who aren't just walking or talking or whatever, they're doing it. And they have now 7, 8 years on the clock, depending on who it is. But Teresa in your neck of the woods has been in it for a while at a high level.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk to them after this amount of time, are they walking around with a bit of like a girl swagger because they understand way more than they did 7 years ago? I mean, assuming you met them 7 years ago and you can compare, like when you first met
Uh,
them, like now, do they understand? Are they comfortable with what would you call it? Like not just their reputation, but like their level of awareness. Do they
when
understand what the position they're in? Do they carry that?
when I speak to those ladies motivate me. They're amazing women. They're amazing people that happen to be women, or however you want to put it. It's not like I'm going, oh, for a girl, she's no. These people are switched on, and I'm amazed by them. And I'm not even like trying to be political because when I meet them at these events, I'm not meeting the first time lady who's just getting in the DC project.
Right.
Like when I met Teresa, Teresa was already been approached by Diana Mueller, who started the DC project. So when I met Teresa, she was already in charge of CNJFO's Coalition New Jersey Firearms Owners. I forgot what she did because Teresa Einacker, who's the DC project representative in Jersey, is also a lawyer, and she's also started to argue in front of the Supreme Court. So it's not. This is a very not only smart lady, but like in the elite of lawyers. She was already working for CNJFO as a 2A advocate as a board member. And she was also working for another organization. That organization kind of imploded, and she was looking for something else. DC Project's lady who was in charge stepped down because of family obligations, and Teresa stepped in. So I never met anyone uneducated. Matter of fact, knows way more than me, more articulate than me and everything. So when I meet these ladies, they're already on the ball. But what is happening is it's growing. So I'm not meeting anybody that doesn't know anything. I'm just meeting more educated women on the subject who happen to be spreading it. Diana did a smart thing. She had it in every state. DC Project has one state representative. But what she did was put that state representative in charge of recruiting for the state. So now you have people in the state whose job is to go to their state capital and speak to their legislators. She brought it down so it becomes local politics. So they're not walking around with girl swagger. They're walking around like women on a mission and know something and know who their audience is and who they can appeal to. So they can go to the, soccer games and the school board meeting, the PTA and that kind of thing. And they see that Teresa's a normal, hardworking single mom with a daughter who's at the things that her daughter does, but Teresa's also a Second Amendment advocate. And if you have a conversation with her, the mom's demand talking points are going to get blown out of the water by her articulately and in a way that you'll understand it as another mom. She can approach you on that level, a level that I won't be able to get to as a dude with 0 kids. You know what I mean? So I think the women in New Jersey and the DC Project, both at the state level and the national level, know that they're making a difference. And they can see it because of membership numbers and who shows up and the amount of funding they get. They raised a lot of money last weekend between them and CNJFO, who was helping them with the fundraising. So I thought it was awesome. They also having politicians there. I wasn't impressed, but at least the politicians showed up to speak. One guy's running for governor. He said all the right things. The other guy's an assemblyman. And he said enough to make me go, I don't trust you at all with my rights. But people were glad to have him there, and I wasn't going to poop on it. You know what I mean? But I actually had a conversation.
Even if they're wrong and they attend an event like that, you got to give them a chance to understand, to realize they're wrong or wrong, bad or in the wrong direction or something like that. When this is a way for them to adjust and to get on track, is to go to events.
Yeah. And then when I realized that he's just another politician who's not going to listen, I was like, okay, now I know where you stand. He actually said in a room full of 2A advocates, not just people who think they're 2A advocates, but people that are actually, show up for the marches, donate, or members and board members of these groups. He stands there and goes, I think there should be, he said, we have to reach across the aisle. That got the hairs on the back of the neck standing up. And he was like, and come to some kind of agreement, like I believe there should be mandatory training requirements. And I was like, nope. And he was like, that we should require those and da 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 da. And I'm like, that's a no. So I go outside and I smoke a cigar after he finished speaking, and I'm contemplating whether I waste my time to speak to another politician. And one of the ladies that comes to my events and wants to get more involved, she was like, well, listen, what's the worst that can happen? You can talk to him and he's what you think he is. I was like, you're right. So I went in and I actually spoke to the gentleman. I was like, how's this? Next time you're in a room full of people and you want to agree to require training requirements, how about instead of requiring the training requirements, encourage people to get training by allowing them to write off the cost off their taxes? Instead of using a stick, why don't you use a carrot? Someone like me will 100% agree with being able to write my ammo cost off and the cost of my firearms off of my New Jersey taxes. It would encourage people more to get training, because when you require training, the state can't be trusted. Right now, the temporary measure they put in as our training is the same training requirements that law enforcement has to take, including firing from your knees. And if you can't get on your knees and get up off your knees, you can't pass it. So if you're in a wheelchair or any other way infirmed, you can't get a carry permit. And it makes no difference if you've already passed the requirements they put out 3 months ago or the requirements they made up 6 months ago. and you have your carry permit, you're not allowed to renew it now, according to this.
Well, I'd say that the Militia Act or whatever, whichever one, 1903 or whatever, the one that created, the idea that we should be better trained marksmen, I would think that that concept of tax credit for practice, to, like Maggie just said, to incentivize training, right? That would be a
Yeah.
great idea. So,
Yeah.
okay, so I appreciate what you said there, because I was asking about that event mainly to find out, again, with like your time on the clock, talking to these ladies in the DC project from the various states, because I know you know a lot of them at this point. You hang out with different events and stuff, so you get a chance to kind of see them develop, so to speak. And again, like you just said, like their ability to challenge the existing narratives, because they're completely versed in this. They do it all the time. That's what they hear from their friends and the people that they have to debate. That's what they hear from the politicians. So they're like competently able to challenge or parry. But the thing is, I was also going to say, if somebody is willing to admit that certain people are better at being, like, let's say, top of the or point of the spear operators, right? You want like a totally healthy, capable person to be able to bust through a door and deal with a shaped charge that opens the door, and then have a dog sent through, and then deal with the different versions of optical issues you got to deal with, and then see through the smoke, and then do target identification, discrimination, and then lethally execute things that have to be done precisely, and then get the hell out of Dodge, get all the intel, right? You understand that a little old guy ain't going to be able to do that. Some young girl isn't going to have the capability to do that yet, right? Like some puppies aren't going to be able to do it, but there are some middle-aged dudes who do that pretty good, and they do it pretty well. So if you realize that, and then if you try to do that in a place where there's religion and social situations where men can't talk to women, period, then women are not going to talk to men, period. So you realize you got to bring females into that situation, and now you can get intel and information from the women because women can talk to women. Now that woman might not be able to pull 3 of the dudes out as wounded or casualties the same way, but she can certainly do things that those dudes can't do. And in the same way that we have special operators who are there to do specific tasks, the DC project is essentially our special operators. Like you mentioned there's no way that you or I could have as useful a conversation with the moms who demand that a Teresa Innerker can. Like, she's the special operations of that situation, and anybody who thinks that they can do it better, unless they're a Teresa Innerker, a mom and a person who's lived the life of someone in New Jersey or whatever, good luck. Like, you can act like you can do it. You might be able to go through the paces, but you're not going to do it. Oh, snap. What was that?
That was weird. Well, I 100% agree that it's funny because I think a lot of gun advocates and people that want to be activists think they can walk into every room and have a conversation. And it's like, not really. Some rooms, they will marginalize you the second you walk in the door because of some category they already put you in that they don't want to hear from you. So sometimes the optic is important of what the advocate looks like, what an activist looks like, and all you do is you take a step back if that's not your bailiwick, if that's not your lane. One of the things, and you were there for the Unity speech or Unity Summit that Maj Toure put on at 2020 SHOT. You had a stage of people that were pretty diverse. I don't think enough women were represented, but we still had one on stage. But yeah, I thought that was interesting because you had men, women. Yeah, I think, was Chris there? Yeah, right? Chris from Top Shot? Chris Chang?
Yeah.
Was he on stage? Okay, Chris was on stage.
On the left side, I believe.
Yeah, Kevin Dixie, and I think his name is Armand or Ashad. He was the Green Beret, that's the EMT. He was on stage representing, and Hank Hank Strange. So you had black people, white people, Asians, women, and I think Edgar Antion was there too. It Guns for Everyone. So you had a lot of us represented on stage. Sadly, not a lot of people went to the event because I thought it should have been it should have had a hell of a lot more people. But you need us all. The Second Amendment is not going to be saved by one race, one party, or just one perspective. It's going to require us all because it's a human right. It's going to require us all to make this thing, in my opinion, apolitical and to make gun control political suicide. I think we can do it. I think we can do it because we just need to push different narratives of whatever's important to the people that we speak to that are in our social circle that we know. Some
another
people don't
dynamic,
care.
another dynamic of the DC project is that the old procedure narrative, I don't know, it's not narrative, the old way of doing things was to pay a national level organization, usually the NRA, to pay lobbyists to go, I don't know what lobbyists do, go, be aware of all the different stupid bill. Everybody acts like lobbyists don't do shit because the movies, they make lobbyists and lawyers and stockbrokers all the evil capitalists. So they can't, none of them can be legitimate. They all have to be evil capitalists. They only care about themselves or their rich friends, like this stupid ass communist narrative that everybody seems to love. But in reality, some of them are like that. Some of them are probably real nice and everybody's in between, right? So, but essentially, from what I understand, lobbyists need to just pay attention to all this stupid crap, all these bills. And I forget who it was the other day who made a great point. Who was it? Somebody was watching the show. It was on Rapid Fire Radio, but somebody made the point on Rapid Fire Radio. I think it was the guest that that what's really happening is the bills that get introduced, that's the money. The bill is the money. They don't really care if it becomes a law or not, because what the money is they introduce the bill, and then a lot of lobbyists have to be hired in order to challenge the bill. And then both sides get to profit off of this bullshit. And right. So anyway, I think that to some extent, what we're going to see is a change there, because the old lobbyists were in that game. The new lobbyists are, essentially playing that game. But as things become open source, as people, 3D print instead of waiting for someone to manufacture, no matter how fast and easy it is for someone to spin up a new product because of demand, someone can still 3D print it before anything can go into production, right? So the same way with lobbying, the DC project is a whole nother level of lobbying, a whole nother type of lobbying. And as other niches, because right now the DC project is essentially challenging the mothers all hate guns narrative, because it was created by, at least it's run by a bunch of moms who are offended by that narrative that all moms are ignorant and only want to marginalize one piece of property and the owners of that property. But a lot of moms understand there's other issues going on. And the DC project was essentially to challenge that, and it's expanded to become a lot more. But I see there's tons of other communities, subsets of the shooting communities, that are not represented, period, right, in all different ways. And I think that concept of the DC project, we've already seen Laura Smith. I don't know if you paid attention. Laura Smith already said at SHOT Show that she's ditching out of the liberal gun club, let it do its own thing. She's going to not be the president anymore, to create a liberal version of the DC project, where a bunch of liberals go give their the pro-gun owning liberal position to the politicians, and to demand Democrats understand that there's gun owning Democrats. And imagine what that impact might have, assuming they're successful. But that's just another sub-demographic of gun owners, the liberal gun owners, maybe the Democrat gun owners, however you want to look at it, or both, or some mixed circle. I don't know what the names are in terms of that. But anyway, there's other people that are going to emulate the DC project. And I should say the future doesn't need to wait for like NRA or somebody to lobby for shit.
And that's a couple reasons. Some of the reasons I want to host diversity shoots across the state, across America, is because of things she's doing. Like, who's going to know about that? Now, when I got interviewed at SHOT Show on SHOT Television. They asked me who should I get, who should I speak to, who should they speak to in an interview. I don't know if they already had her on, but I suggested her. I suggested Sarah from Hold My Guns. So I don't know if that was already on their short list or whatever, but I know her and I didn't know she was doing this, right? I think it's important to host events like I do and get new people around because what if it's not even a what if? I have a lot of people that consider themselves conservative. Some people consider themselves MAGA, whatever the heck that word is, but they're fans of Donald Trump. Others just consider themselves conservatives or Republicans. And they come to my events. Well, some people are of a different they're Democrats or they're liberals or they're libertarians. And if there's Second Amendment advocacy groups that welcome them and will come at this fight from a totally different angle, people need to hear about them at events like mine. Like you just bought your gun last week. Now you're trying to figure out one, how to shoot it safely because you don't even know any firearms instructors. Hell, you lucky you found the damn gun store. Now you hear about my event for $20. You can come to the range and meet people in the circle you're trying to get into. Well, while you're sitting there, you find out there's a club that represents you that is fighting for this right. And there are people like whatever category you put yourself in that makes you feel more comfortable because, again, this is your first foray into this entire world of gun ownership. People need to hear about that and they need groups like mine. And groups like mine, I'm not even saying 2A4E, but what I found out when this whole gun thing is a whole bunch of groups bicker with each other. And I somehow have the ability to still be friends with people that somehow don't like each other, but they're friends of mine and want to help me succeed. And I want to use that to fight this fight. And if it takes my template to make it work, which a lot of people are asking, me to host events in their state, then I will freaking do it because we don't have all the time. We're one cataclysmic event or maybe two back-to-back horrible events that they will get enough votes from, again, people willing to reach across the aisle to shut down this right.
Yeah,
Sorry,
and I'm just going to take that opportunity to say that I was just doing my review last night, and it seems like we're being the victims as a community of the short-term memory that anybody can have when there is an onslaught of abuse and distraction. So, I think it's last year, the year before, during this administration, there were two pieces of gun control passed at the national level. One was to restrict 18 to 20-year-olds to suggest that they shouldn't have the ability to own a firearm, even though they can serve in the armed forces and other reasons that, they're adults, they shouldn't own firearms. And Republicans allowed that to go through at a national level with the idea that this will stop an assault weapons ban because we'll compromise, we'll appease them with this, and that'll save lives. Well, it's not going to do anything. But then the other part was the massive amount of spending that was going to be distributed or allocated to states from the federal government. And essentially, I remember reading this all live one time whenever it came through, but the Republicans voted to have, it was like trillions of dollars set aside, and they were going to use tens of billions at a time or some crazy number. And they were going to dangle these giant numbers for the next 4 or 10 years or some series of breakdowns of this money. And they were going to set aside this money in the federal budgets, and they were going to set aside this money to dangle in front of the states. And if the states danced the right dance and did the right red flag laws, they would be entitled to this money. And it was the first 10 states. So it wasn't like these 10 states. It was like as many states as want to dance, you start making red flag laws, and we're going to pick the best, the worst, best, whatever red flag laws, and we're going to give them this financial incentive that you can use to implement all your red flag laws. So for those states that want to do it, it was here's a bunch of federal tax money to pursue this. So I'm explaining this because now what I'm seeing in the news last week is people being appalled that federal money is being used to blah, blah, blah. And instead of remember what happened, let's hold people's feet to the fire. Remember what happened. Let's not shut up about this. Remember what happened. We should never let this happen again. This happened 30 years ago and it's happening again. We should not be letting Republicans concede or do things in order to not take the worst of the bunch, whatever you want to say, for compromise or essentially backpedal on rights. This is frustrating to see that reaction to what's an opportunity to end this, to really end this. And I mean that by an awareness campaign to suggest hey, you allowed this to happen at the threat of an assault weapons ban. There was a suggestion that it was going to do anything, prove that it's going to do anything. You've kind of already said, show how this affects suicide, show how this affects price of tea in China, so to speak, and then there's none of that. They're just allowed to push, spend, break, waste money. And then the result is they're just going to do it again next session. And we're going to have to repeat this process. We can eliminate it and just be done being frustrated by at the same time, we train the middle. The people in the middle need to be educated, not because they're all that interested, just to get rid of this confusion. But it's easy to get rid of the confusion. It's so easy. I mean, we can explain everything else out there, but we can't explain firearms. That's anyhow. Yeah. I'm gotten off on a tangent. So,
but it is 100% right. And doing what advocating like I do, I don't have a side as far as I'm concerned. My side is on anyone who's for my freedoms. And I will call out Republicans and Democrats alike. And when I do, what annoys me about many gun owners is they still believe there's a team for them. You have no team. You must hold everybody responsible, including rhinos. And when I say, well, what are you going to do about the Republicans that reached across the aisle and took your rights away? They'll say, well, who else are we going to vote for in the election? And I'm like, you need to change that. You need to put pressure on them. You need to let the political party, state, federal, whatever, know that person is not welcome back to the table next election. They need to find somebody that's actually pro-gun.
And the answer is not a Democrat or even a libertarian if you don't want it to be one of those. I mean, there are people that are going to say, well, let's change the Democrats' mind. Go for it. I don't care. Change the Democrats' mind. There might be people that say, go libertarian. Okay, go for it. I really think there should be 3 parties or more and not just 2. But if you want to not do those, I can see that. If you don't see that as a valid strategy, right on. Then you primary. You go to the primaries of all these people, and that's when they're most vulnerable. That's when you're able to put someone up as a challenge. Either if you can't do it, support someone who can challenge someone on a specific or maybe a couple of specific points. And then that's how you tell a representative the constituency values this more than what you're putting out there. And anybody who wants to stay in office is going to use that and understand it. And, I'm sure it's theoretical or sure it's idealistic, but that's an answer. Like, you can primary people who have the position you want, and that's a way to start creating. And it might have realistic expectations. The first time you try it doesn't mean you're going to win it the first time. You're not owed anything. And it might take 100 tries if you're in a stubborn place, but water is always going to erode rock. Ice doesn't, but water does. Go ahead.
Also this, because a lot of us don't know, because I am not in the politics. I just want to shoot guns with my friends. That's all I want to do. I am not a political junkie. I don't like this part, but I'm in it for a reason. Now, one of the first things I got involved with was a recall of the president of our Senate in New Jersey. Yeah, we swung and missed.
Yeah, I don't think everything needs to be a success. He was taken out because he was attempting to do something political in New Jersey, and that doesn't fly. They take you out immediately when that happens. Oh, no, he got away. He must have dodged the bullets. I figured because you were talking about doing something in New Jersey, they took you out right then.
Oh, that's what I thought too. In New Jersey, you work on a recall. Guess what? If that Republican guy, again, they're not on your team if they're voting against your rights, recall them. Start a recall petition. Show them how serious you are about getting that person pulled out of office right now. and have them run for re-election, and you're going to cost the Republican Party money because they're supporting a dude that reached across the aisle. Well, I don't want him there. This topic, this particular right is important enough that I will kick over the whole Republican apple cart and make them do a re-election. And the Republican Party's got to pay for it. Got to have people to run, and they have to figure out who they're going to support. That's something you can actually do. And there's been enough of them. New Jersey Second Amendment Society used Connecticut and used Colorado as templates for their fight. Alexander actually reached out to the people that organized that. Tim Knight was one of them in Colorado that set up the Colorado recall and got, 2 people replaced and 1 person quit before she could get booted out. You can make a difference, especially in local politics, and it takes time and it takes a concerted effort, but you can make that difference happen on a local level, and that will scare the Jesus out of the powers that be when it comes time to elect people. Now, one of the things I learned from one of the representatives speaking at Saturday's event, remember in Jersey, and some of you may and some of you won't, because a lot of people from Jersey put it in, NRA put it out. The New Jersey representative talked about, we don't want those people armed. And he named the cities that those people were from. And of course, it was a majority minority cities. He put forth a bill that was like paying for training. It was just putting all types of obstacles in the way of firearms ownership. And he used that term, those people. Well, come to find out, he's a firearms owner. And he didn't believe in that at all. But the powers that be in the Democratic Party told him either he puts forth this bill, because they knew he was a gun guy. So he had that. Oh, he must know what he's talking about. He's a gun guy, and he wants these bills in place. And they told him if he didn't do that, according to him, in a private conversation, they said they were going to pull his support for the next re-election, and they were going to fund someone else. And he told this representative that, thinking that the guy was going to be sympathetic. And the guy was like, so you sold yourself out for re-election bid. So you have no principles. And I was like, interesting. I'll take conversations that never happen, Alex, for $500. But I found it interesting as even part of that was true. That the guy was told, you won't get reelected. We won't fund your reelection unless you put forth this bill. I think that might be the grain of truth in it. And I'm like, yeah, so you go, the Second Amendment is really important to me and the Democrats in this area. And if you put forth another bill like that, we won't support you. And we're going to find another candidate to run, and we'll directly give them money. The Democratic Party, Republican Party in your area can't put out that many bushfires on the local and state level. They just can't. If we stand up as gun owners and put forth liberal, libertarian, and Republican candidates for the primary that believe in the Second Amendment, we can win. That's what Moms Demand is doing across the country. They're being funded by billionaires to do it. But collectively, 80 to 100 million Americans have more money than the billionaires, to put it this.
Yeah, and you can only, you can only pay so many to start the group clap. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to die off if it's not there for a reason. Like, if people aren't clapping because they want to clap, you can't just. And so I think those billionaires and stuff, we don't even have to match them dollar for dollar, I guess is what I'm saying. Once there's enough actual people doing their thing, the millionaires are going to leave. They're only there because it's opportune. I don't know how often it comes up, but the only reason Bloomberg is wailing on gun owners is because we're disorganized. And every time he pushes $1 million at gun owners and the NRA or whatever his misguided bullshit is, he probably gets $1.5 million out of it. And I don't know if there's anybody, I know John Lott pays some attention to more of the complexity of this whole thing, but is anybody paying attention to the frequency and the timing of when Bloomberg puts his effort into this? Is it when he's losing money? Is it when he's making money? I've always said he's the 14th or 20th richest person on the planet if you can get a straight answer out of the internet. He's one of the top richest human beings on the planet Earth. Why would he stop at whatever millions of dollars? We've already looked at it, and the money that he spends on gun issues is like
Mm-hmm.
$200 to a regular person. It is not an issue for him. If he really wanted to be known for the person who had influence in the gun issue, he could lean in with half of his actual assets, and he could buy every single gun shop in the United States. And I mean, we're talking with a guy who's got the 20th richest person on the planet. He doesn't
Yeah.
want to do this. He only makes money doing it. He's only putting in the money that it's appropriate. If he puts in twice as much money, then Mom's is twice as big as the NRA, and it takes over and it wins. If he puts in half the money, it loses, right? So he puts in just enough money to be able to mess with us, to be able, you know what I'm saying? Is anybody looking into that? Like, who is our adversary? Is it an actual valid adversary, or is it a person who's got whatever interests and impetus in this? Like, it's either a money thing or
Mm-hmm.
it's something, but it isn't fame and glory, because again, he would lean into it if he wanted to really change anything. But anyway, I know I'm getting off in a tangent, but I know when we were talking about challenging the idea that he's got this money leaning into it, that somehow we're powerless, and you're saying, no, like, if we really thought about it, we can match him dollar for dollar, and we're not going to go broke doing it. He's going to go
Mm-hmm.
well, he wouldn't, but if he
He
really
would.
with the money
He
he
would.
puts in it now, we would match it easily without going broke, is what I should say.
Yep, because he can't fund every election in the country, local, state, and federal, without
Or if
getting caught out there.
yeah, he'd be down. He'd dwindle all his resources and wouldn't be able to do it more than once. He could do it
Yep.
once. Yeah.
Once. And the groundswell that it just wouldn't work out. But we have been hit from every side to believe that we're powerless. And that's what really kills me. And again, we're not. I feel, and this is just my personal feeling, get fitted for the tinfoil hat. I feel after every national disaster, and this is just what I picked up after 9/11, the powers that be, after these national tragedies, see how quickly Americans come together and dismiss the bullcrap divisiveness. Like almost instantaneously, it's out the freaking window. And they were like, we can't have this. We have to keep this going. And every time they try to divide us and they use it because we've seen it. And I think we have to remind each other that we've seen it. We saw it after 9/11. We saw it after Hurricane Katrina. We see what America can do when they get together and put their civil rights, their rights, and their lives as a priority. We shut them down. They can't stop it. What do they call it? The Cajun Navy that went in and were pulling people out, dudes showing up with 4x4s and bass boats and jet skis and anything that would float, helping people, not waiting for the government, regular people doing the thing themselves. We have that power, but they continually try to convince us we don't. And those people that don't look like you or don't sleep with the same type of people you do hate you and want to steal your children. And they put it all over your news. They put it on your social media. And they try to make you believe it with every fiber of your being that you're hated by anyone who doesn't look like you. And they do it to maintain power. And it's blatant.
And it's one of those things where you've heard of the jar when it went around fairly recently. You put the two different kinds of ants in a jar and everybody's happy, and then the jar gets shook and everybody gets upset with each other. And the real point there is that the ants aren't paying attention to that they're in a jar, and they're not paying attention to that other third party that shook the jar, because they're just not aware of it. They're ants and they just can't conceptualize it. And I think that part of it is where there's that open, and people that want to think of it sinister. There's people that can think of it as inept. I think of it as mechanisms, and there's just lots and lots of mechanisms at play. And you've been in the military, you've been in lots more bureaucratic stuff than I have, I guess. I've been in the military, I've worked with some government things before. So I've had glimpses into bureaucracy enough to know that essentially, I don't know how many actual types of bureaucrats there are, but there's the people that have a goal and they want to get stuff done, and they'll trudge through no matter what. And then there's the people that are lazy and just want a place to set. And there's certainly places in bureaucracy where you can just set. And there's this like notion where once you got your job in bureaucracy, you can't be fired. So they move those people around to places where essentially they just suck money and everybody's content with it because, you know, they just can get as big as they need to when you don't have to have a bottom line that's scrutinized by anybody really. Then the bottom line just gets bloated. So what you end up with is just a lot of like people that are doing the bare minimum, a couple of people that are burning themselves out trying to actually get stuff accomplished, and then a bunch of people not even, I don't even know what to call it, just, you know, bloating. At least that's my experience with the polices that I've dealt with. And when you deal with that, like, I don't know, I just think that when you haven't dealt with that, I guess, you don't realize how much disbelief you'll have when this idea is that, oh, this next thing will be handled, you know, perfectly by bureaucracy. Like, man, and I don't care what the bureaucracy is. I don't care if it's state level. I don't care if it's your neighborhood watch thing. I don't care if it's, you know, like your club at work or something, or if you're your fishing club. Like, there's any bureaucracy, it starts to get tedious, and that's what the founding fathers knew. They weren't like all knowing. They just knew that people, when you got like 4 people involved, it's going to get annoying, and if you don't have really easy to deal with rules for all the eventualities, then you end up with either chaos or, you know, falling apart. So anyway, I think I'm rambling again, I guess, but with the dynamic we've got, I think the politicians or the bureaucracy, I guess, is hard to blame for that. And there's the people that have faith in that, and they're like, oh, well, you know, a little bit bigger isn't going to hurt nothing. You know, a little bit. If they took all of it instead of just a piece of it, then we'd be okay. The problem is that they don't have enough of it. And, you know, I don't agree with that, but they're allowed to. It's a free country, so they can have that belief and that they can pursue that belief. But now we have to either deal with it on 2 ends, you know, change their belief, or just plain fight with them about it and understand that they're just never going to change their mind. Anyway, you probably have to deal with it more, working with it and having worked with it for so long.
I think my partner told me this. I was blessed to have, and I understand now, a lot of the things and the people we meet end up being blessings, even good or bad, because it should teach you something. My partner taught me a lot, and he was like, look, these people do the bare minimum. He was like, there's about 10% of people that go to their job every day to light the fucking world on fire. About 10%. He was like, there's another 20% in state, federal, whatever, 20 to 30% that just want to coast by with the minimum of work. Like, matter of fact, not only do they want to get away with the minimum, they want to do less than minimum and get the same pay. Like, they're straight up anchors on everybody else. And then there's the people in the middle, the other 60%, that just want to go to work, come home, and not be bothered.
And, you know, when you put it that way, they're like the bungee cord. So as bad as the bad get and as ambitious as the ambitious get, those people in the middle have to stretch and can adapt themselves to that gap. And that can be frustrating in its own way, I'm sure, because, you know, they're sort of ambitious. They're willing to hold on to the ambitious people, but they're also going to, you know, understand. Yeah, so I imagine that's a layer to it.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, and so that's what I've learned, that it's like, nah, dude, it's not true at all. It's like, no, most people just want to be left to frig alone, and we have to motivate them to understand that they can make a difference. They just go along to get along.
I don't think we have to. I think we have the opportunity to, because when you say have to, it seems like it's urgent or like we have this obligation. But I'd say, like, you know, I'm agreeing with you, but I think let's say we have the opportunity, because one, it's like you can or you can't. Who cares, right? You can do it or not. You can agree with us or not, or you can agree with us, think it's a great idea, and just not have the time or the resources, which is fine, right? But if we understand that it's our opportunity, then one, you can find people who are doing it and support them, or two, you can find mechanisms of support and lend your resources when able, like your time or your elbow grease or your money when you're able. or when you're energized to, or when you feel it's necessary. But I think that's the open source kind of future version of this, is that it doesn't have to be done by somebody else. We don't have to wait. And I don't think it has to be done like 90%, 99% of the time. Like, I think a lot of this is like, we got to get it in motion. Once it's in motion, which is a lot of it is already in motion, spoiler alert. Once it's in motion and we're all just kind of aware of that, then it's just like, it's like the NRA was a big mechanism that we all walked behind. Well, once we're the mechanism and we realize it, we can just keep walking. Like, we don't have to do anything. Just us understanding that we have power in our awareness. It's kind of like we're the Matrix walking through politicians. They don't know where to attack because they don't have an NRA to just shoot at anymore. They don't see a big target and aim at it and think that they can win by just getting rid of our target, or, the thing that's in front of us. Or
Yeah. Okay. This is what I found at work, and it's pretty funny because, again, I talk about this at work. I'm sure it could get me fired in any other job. But one of my guys, when he started, he's 23. And I started speaking to him about the Second Amendment and how it's important that we as firearms owners support it. And his dad owned like a couple of guns. Well, the more I proselytized over it, he ended up buying his first semi-automatic handgun, getting his pistol purchase permit, doing that kind of thing, getting his firearms ID card, and buying an AR, all because I got him into it. Well, the other kid, 19 years old, he goes, "Yeah, I'm not really into politics at all." And he was like, "Really, when it comes down to it," and this is a couple of years of conversation, this is what I got out of it. He's like, "When it comes down to it, I can get a gun illegally, so I'm not worried about it." And I'm like, you know what? It's the best I could get. I'm not going to turn him into a 2A advocate. He goes, "I don't care. I'm going to violate the law if it means me getting a firearm to protect me and mine." And I think that's a lot of people. And I just had to accept that, yeah, I'm not going to reach him, at least with this, this way at this point in his life. Some people just want to be left alone, go do their work, and not talk about politics at all, and not have anything to do with it because it makes them feel dirty.
Wonder if there's a layer to this, or if it isn't even a real position in their tactic, that if they pass a gun law, they know that a bunch of people on their side, I'm assuming we're talking Democrats here, a bunch of Democrats know that the Democrat, and this is probably a bullshit position, but I'm assuming a bunch of shit here. But if they figure the people that aren't going to follow the law aren't going to follow the law, so we can make whatever laws we want, and what does anybody care? Because the only people this is bothering is a certain set of Republicans over there. Like, everybody else is going to do whatever they're going to do, and they could care less what we're saying over here. And if they just know that. So anyway, if that's the case, and I'm not just being crazy about that, then I wonder if there's a tack there where, just let people know, like, hey man, like, what the hell? It's like, well, one thing I think is weakening that is when more like Rick Ector's thing we should be having on the screen here, that I've had up like 10 times, that Smeggy said, where'd it go? Says a girl he works with went to Rick Ector's training thing last weekend. So, the more people that just understand guns, the less they're going to be willing to allow a politician to pass some dumbass law. If a politician is going to say all gun owners are dipshits or violent or whatever, then you don't care if you don't own a gun. But as soon as you own a gun, you're like, hey, wait a minute, I take offense to that. Like, I'm not a dipshit. What are you saying? Or even if like your friends, like, hey, wait, my mom, my friend at work, and my daughter all own guns. I don't want to, but I understand why they do. They've explained it to me. And now you just call them all criminals. Like, so they know that some of this stuff's going to fail at some point. But anyway, so let's take a second and talk about Rick's thing. 1,500 from what I understand, at least that's going into it. That's what he anticipated, but I haven't heard any like after action with a real number. I was thinking about this kind of out loud the other day. What happens is everybody's amped up, they're getting ready, they're preparing for the event. Then the event happens and you sometimes get some selfies and stuff in the spur of the moment, and then maybe some people plan to do some stuff, and maybe even like an overnight the first night, or like, here's what's happening after hours. But then as soon as everybody gets home, usually everybody's tired and recuperating and traveling, and you don't see any like after actions really. And then by the time a week goes by, I think everybody thinks everybody else posted, so they don't feel any like, what's the word, like any motivation, I guess, to post. So they're like, oh, I'll post when I post. And then everybody does that. So you just don't get a lot. And I'm seeing the same from the national convention, NAGA's national convention, which was also last weekend. And again, everybody probably efforted to get down there and then experienced it and everything, and then traveling home. So I'm hoping there's going to be some sort of, if Charlie went to Rick's thing?
Charlie didn't go to Rick's thing. He had something else to do.
Okay.
He was doing another training thing. So Matt from Meet the Pressers went. Paul did from
Second Amendment.
Second Amendment Foundation Weekly Bullet. Him and Susan went. Amanda Suffolk went from Eye on the Target Radio and the 5,000 things she does.
And I did see them do something overnight. Like they did some kind of a chat with like 5 or 6 of them in a room.
Patrick from Gun Food. I was luckily down. What happened, I don't know because I'd been talking it up and I was 100% planning on being there. And my transmission went cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs and I had to go and take that in, but it was unknown how much that was going to cost. So it would have been really fiscally irresponsible for me to go to Detroit and not know if I could fix my car when I came back. Because I have 3 diversity shoots this month and more in September and a job that I have to get to. So I didn't go, and I would have been totally bummed out. But somebody called me up and said, "Hey, we got a ticket for the DC Project thing. We know you're supposed to be in Detroit." I mean, I promoted the DC Project thing in South Jersey, but I was supposed to be in Detroit, so I didn't bother buying a ticket. And they were like, "Hey, we have an open ticket, dude. Somebody lives 5 minutes away from you, can pick you up and bring you." So I went there and I felt I did some good with the Second Amendment. I brought in some new dudes that are friggin' trainers, like certified, that will be at my next diversity shoot. So I have new volunteers for that. So I felt that I was doing Second Amendment work, even though I didn't get to be where I wanted to be, where I planned to be. So I think I did a lot of good in South Jersey, but I really missed the Rick thing. They introduced a lot of women to firearms for the first time. They had a safety brief for them each day that was like significant, like 2 to 3 hour safety brief. Not only safety, but I think, use of force kind of thing, and talking them through it. So I thought that was cool, interesting. Want to be a part of that, want to talk to those ranges because I'm trying to grow, and that would be a great weekend to be up in Detroit and host it in 2024. Do a diversity shoot maybe on Friday and another one on Monday in Detroit. That bookends the weekend of the free training for the women. So, the guy's girlfriend, mom, sister, all are going to the free thing on Saturday and Sunday. But if he wants to get in on it, he can pay $20 to come to a diversity shoot, which is slightly different, but kind of sort of the same thing.
Well, and if you do watch the pictures of the diversity shoot, not diversity, the Rick Ector's thing, 1,500 ladies, even with dozens of instructors who know what they're doing and are, there to keep the lines moving. There's 2 locations. It's still 700 and something ladies. Even if it's on 2 days, that's 300 and something ladies at each location each day. So with dozens of instructors, and even if it's, a few hours long or it's multiple hours long, even if it's only a few minutes with each lady, which, it's more like 10 or 15, I think, with some group stuff. And then with the individual, it just takes some time. So a diversity shoot is just a different layout. You're showing up, you're eating some pizza, you're having a group thing, and then you're much smaller group doing their thing. So it's not like waiting in line, talking to ladies and that kind of thing, like spending the day at an event. This is spending a couple of hours at an event.
Yeah, I put my thing together as 3 to 4 hours because it's done on a weekday. You know what I mean? Like if it's done on a Saturday, yeah, we can kick. I mean, that's what the awesome people in Nebraska did with the Nebraska firearms owners. They held 3 events that day. So we had one in the morning. You come in. I did a diversity shoot thing. We had the volunteers on the range. The people went in the range. They had a great time. They shot a bunch of ammo. They went home. The next group comes in. I do the diversity shoot thing. We have a grill. We have lunch. People ate hot dogs, hamburgers. They went into the range. They shot. They came out. We rested. They had the speeches from Second Amendment advocates. And then we did the third group. So we did 3 diversity shoots in one day.
Nobody
Awesome.
needs that many diversity shoots in one day.
Awesome. Oh, dude, I was like, everybody wants to be a rock star until it's time to do rock star stuff. The end of the day, ibuprofen was my friend. But I don't think we could do that only because, again, it's going to be a Friday and a Monday. If we bookend it like I'm talking, or it could be a Thursday and a Friday. Regardless, it'll be a weekday. And the reason I want to do it that way is because we'd have instructors from around the country that are actually certified firearms instructors that can be there, and you can swap people out because sometimes you just get tired of being in a room with booming guns for hours on end, especially if you're not used to it, even as an instructor.
Exactly. Yeah, no, seriously, you're not used to it, and you don't know that you don't know what you're signing up for until you're there. Smeggy's saying that the ladies have a certain time slot, so they're not there all day. So I'm putting out bad info. So I don't want to discourage anybody from showing up if that's not their thing. It looks like they are more scheduled than I was aware, and they're
okay, cool.
Yeah,
I didn't know either. I only got one phone call from Paul, and he was running it down to me how it went. So look, the more people we can get involved, the more people we can break out. Like you said, all of a sudden you're a firearms owner, but you're a Democrat, and they're going, oh, every firearm. I mean, Bloomberg was really known for it, but I don't know if you listen to the Democrats in the news, whether you heard it or whether you only heard, Bloomberg's derogatory comments about firearms owners on conservative news stations. Like he'd say things like, if you want to own a gun, you're an idiot.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Did that get covered on MSNBC and CNN? Or did they just not have that part of the speech? You only saw it if you watched Fox. A lot of us don't understand that you're being manipulated through your news media. Whoever your guy is and your show is, if you're not watching the one that's 180 degrees opposed to you, you're getting played. I don't know if I told you this because we talk afterwards. When Donald Trump went to North Korea, remember that one? When Donald Trump went and talked to Kim Il, whatever his name is, the dictator in North Korea, leading up to it and the whole thing, Donald Trump was calling the guy Rocket Man and insulting him, and CNN was talking about how Donald Trump was going to start World War III. Then all of a sudden, I'm in the officer's dining room, and I'm watching on the news Donald Trump walking in North Korea. Well, in this room, in the officer's dining room, everybody's watching Fox. They're all conservative Republicans. And I'm like, what are you doing? We're watching Donald Trump. I'm like, turn to CNN. Why would we ever watch CNN? I'm like, didn't these guys spend the last 6 months talking about Donald Trump is going to start a war? Don't you want them? Don't you want to watch them have to eat those words? As Donald Trump is historically the first American president to ever walk into North Korea. You couldn't get them to turn fast enough. Just so they could see how the other side reacted. I'm like, that's the thing. You need to do this more than just this one time. You need to check out what the other side is saying about you and how your side is playing you. You need to look. We need to be aware. Your news media is playing you too, regardless of the side you're on. They're manipulating the information that you get. All communication is manipulation, and you have to understand that.
Especially when there's things at stake that we value. That's why they poke here, right? Because they know that they're going to get immediate response. They're going to get a lot of response, and it's going to be not just more than knee jerk. There's going to be like they're going to get a consistent and repeatable response, right? So again, it's just a mechanism, I think, and they know that they've been able to do it for a while, and it's like a flea biting a horse's butt. If it's only going to get a tail, then it just don't care. It's going to keep biting the horse's butt and get fat and be a big fat flea and have babies or whatever and have more fleas, and the horse is just going to keep swatting its tail. Or it's going to rub up on a post and squish it, and it's done, right? And maybe you have to worry about it again in the future. You remember about rubbing up against a post, but you swat, and you rub it up against a post. We need to remember that there's other tools to our thing, and we can rub it up against a post once in a while, right? I don't know if I'm using good examples. I got a stinky dog next to me, so I'm thinking of flies. And
That's funny. But yeah, dude, it's just I sometimes take it on, and you got me that I don't have to recruit everybody. I don't have to change everybody's mind. But what I'd like to do is have people understand that you don't either. You don't have to change everybody's mind, but you can have conversations because at different times of their life, they may be more acceptable to the firearms thing. You never know.
And when
The
they're not being like challenged, like you gotta like all firearms, at least the perception is that you just gotta eat all firearms. You gotta like assault weapons bans. Or I mean, you gotta like assault weapons. You gotta like these magazines. If you just let them chill when they're being told they gotta hate all that stuff and let them get it out of their system and then go shoot. And before they know it, we all know the deal. I don't have to break it down. Now they're shooting something decent and they're like, wow, this is fun. And that's when you go, you've been soaking in it. That's an assault rifle. And they're like, oh, no, I thought assault rifles were different. Right? So, that kind of thing. You can let that happen. But if you try to force that, that's never going to be forced, right? You're never going to be like, I'll challenge you and you're going to like it. Like, no.
Yeah, no. And because again, because I'm not straddling both sides. I'm trying to speak to both sides. And I'm a diehard Second Amendment advocate. Screw you. I should be able to order everything I want, including aircraft to carry to drop off at the house. But a lot of guys going, oh, you have to do this and you have to do that. And you can't be a liberal. Oh, you can't be a Democrat and be pro 2A. You can't. I'm like, who the F are you? I was like, look, you can believe that because I'm not going to change your mind. But you ain't on the welcoming committee. You know what I mean? You ain't on the welcoming committee to get people to come into Second Amendment advocacy. You could be the dude at the range with the cool guns or all that, but you're not helping if that's the way you're going to be loud with this. So go do you. Go be the guru of training or whatever thing, or FUDism or whatever thing you into. Teach people to duck hunt. But you're not the dude I'm going to introduce new shooters to that may not be, new shooters that may not be dyed-in-the-wool MAGA hat Republicans. Cold dead hands. I'm not introducing anybody that's not that to you. Because everybody ain't built for this.
Dude, now as you're saying that, I'm thinking like of a Walmart, right? And there's like, if everybody in the whole Walmart staff was standing at the front door to meet everybody, then it'd be chaos. And then also nothing else would be getting done in the store. So somebody needs to run electronics. Somebody needs to have the bananas or whatever. Somebody's working at they don't work at the registry. We always talk about that. But, somebody's doing the different things. And I don't really care how Walmart works. If you like those positions, it's great. But the idea is that, let somebody else do the welcoming. You go back and work on electronics if that's your thing. Like if you like you just said, like if you like sports shooting, go do sports shooting, and you don't worry about welcoming the people in the front door of guns. Like let somebody else do that because and that's fair. Like not everybody wants to do it, and every once in a while somebody needs to be tapped on the shoulder and said, "Hey, you got good intentions here, but you suck at this. Go sit down."
And you don't have to be that dude. And if you're bad at it, or if that's how you think you're doing advocacy, you're bad at it. You're really bad. You're turning a lot more people off, and it sucks.
I don't know who we're talking to here, and I'm thinking kind of theoretical. A lot of times I'm thinking of somebody when I'm saying stuff, and I'm trying to now picture who it is that needs to be tapped on the shoulder and sat down. And honestly, except for, I can't even think of really, because there's a couple of people who are lame or do things different than I do, but as far as being tapped on the shoulder and said like, "Oh, you're doing this really wrong." I can't think maybe he was really doing it. Except
They're in the comment section of a lot of my stuff.
Okay.
Every now and again they pop up. Oh, those people can't be. And I'm like, you need to shut up and sit down. Because I've been doing this work for 8 years and a whole lot of them are. Whatever those people you're pointing out.
Okay, I think you're talking like the people who are like no Democrat. You can't trust a Democrat.
Can't trust a Democrat. And I'm like,
you can have that opinion all you want, but you're not going to be the person who's standing at the front door because every time you see a Democrat sticker, you're going to feel obligated to say some Democrat fucking remark, and that's not helping anybody.
Yeah, I had one of my guys, and I say my guys, but he's not. But he came into advocacy a few years ago, and he had a talent, and he was going to use that talent to grow the Second Amendment and put word out, and he was going to challenge a lot of stuff. You've been around long enough to see some of these people come and go. They come in with all the energy. They know the way, and all everybody has to do is stop doing whatever they're doing and follow him or follow them. And he did that and immediately got burned out because this was his first time. And everybody is not going to be swayed to you, the new guy, who this is your third post on Facebook, but you just told us all 2A advocacy was wrong up until you showed up. And it burned him out. So he just showed up at one of my diversity shoots 2 events ago. And then he showed up at this week's event. And he was like, what we need to do is march on the Capitol. We need to storm the Capitol, storm the castle, and make a difference. We can't just introduce people to advocacy. We have to get in their faces. And I'm like, you need to calm down. I'm like, you need to pump the brakes and understand we're in a room full of people that this is the first time they even thought about shooting a gun. And I'm trying to introduce them to Second Amendment advocates that put in the work, and you're taking them to a level that pretty much they ain't ready for.
Well, nobody is, and nobody's asking for. And there's people that, and that's a portion of this. I know that it's usually the youngins. I'm assuming it's youngins. I guess I really don't know, but there's definitely every once in a while somebody will come along and they'll be like, hyped up or like overambitious or just unrealistic in their positions on stuff, and yeah, they'll have like these. Like, oh man, the rallies. Like, I'm a big advocate of rallies. I really like rallies, but I am realistic about rallies, and I don't have a delusion a rally itself is going to do anything other than, well, it does a lot of good, but it's not magic. And while there have been magical events, those aren't created, those happened, right? And you let those happen by doing them often, and then there's more chance of them happening. But anyway, but let's say somebody comes along and they're just like, there's not enough rallies. We need more rallies. There should be more rallies and all that. Like sometimes they just need to come into a group and get that out of their system. And it's not like they're wrong. It's just that they realize then, like after listening to about 15 or 100 people, that, okay, all these things that you're suggesting, you're not new. You haven't come up with all these new things. Like people have thought about this, and here's what happens when you saturate rallies this, or when you have too large a rallies that, or when you do the rallies at the wrong time or place this. And when you essentially the only real negatives about rallies, honestly, are if you do a rally and it's not successful enough, then people go, oh, see, yeah. And if it's too successful, then the next year it has to be just as successful. And there's just a lot of that, like, see, I told you, or it better be this good again. And that kind of stuff can kill. I mean, that kills a concert, that can kill a Comic-Con, and it can kill ours. It's just the nature of humans. We're jerks like that. But so I don't think it's unique to guns or anything, but that's just one of those things that we always have to deal with events. But I think even more so, there's some people that don't like rallies. And well, anyway, I'll get off on a tangent 3 hours into the show, but
yeah, it is. It's fun. How do I put that? It's interesting to me as somebody that's been doing this for going on. This is my 12th year. Yeah, I think 12th year of advocacy. And I set back, laid in the cut and learned who was who, learned what was going on, became aware of the personality conflicts we had in the 2A sphere in my state, and realized that I don't really care. That's some high school crap, and we have a bigger overall mission, and I don't have time for that. But there's going to be that, and sometimes if you're new to something, you really need to take a second to figure out the lay of the land.
That's for sure, for sure.
And-
Because sometimes
yeah.
it's just petty, and sometimes it's massive, and sometimes it's just old, and sometimes it matters ultimately, and sometimes it doesn't matter at all.
Yep. I love these guys because cough cough fed. Actually said that afterwards. And I know the guy and I've known him for a while, but I was like, yo, dude, something happened. He disappeared for a while and then he comes back talking that. But I don't like that talk because I think when people try to radicalize someone in my event, I will shut your ass down. My very first event, I had the state police try to infiltrate it as a normal guy, and it was the worst. It was the worst. It almost looked like, what do you call it, when the cops from Reno 911 try to be incognito and infiltrate something. It was that comic. The dude showed up with the I'm a cop haircut and the I'm a cop in casual clothes wardrobe. And I'm like, so what department are you with? Okay, here's a hint to all the police officers out there. If you want to look like a regular dude, don't buy everything you wear from 511. Just letting you know that. 511 sells casual clothes that makes you look like an off-duty police officer. Anyway, I don't want radicalization. I want people to understand they have a right and they can fight for it, and there's a mechanism in place to fight for that right, and you don't have to storm anything. And this is one of the things I said. I was like, if you don't believe in voting in the voting process, if you don't believe in going to town hall meetings, if you don't want to petition, none of that's for you. You are not going to make me believe that you're ready to snipe people from the redcoats from the rooftop. I don't think you're that committed. You're not taking over a federal building. You're all talk. And you should try to put in some of the steps first to make a change before you somehow think you're ready to put on a black glove and raise your fists above your head and go into the state capitol, because that ain't you. And I don't know if I don't think he took that personally. I just put that out there to all the wannabes that think it's enough and it's time to suit up. Stop. You're not that guy.
It's pretty easy when you're a novice, right? Like inexperienced, young, whatever, and are just not able to conceptualize stuff, right? You're just a little kid or whatever. But again, being inexperienced and not have a good grasp on all the possibilities or whatever of your consequences, what you're talking about. And then you see things that are like idolized or what's the word? Like misunderstood or intentionally obscured. They mess with the facts or whatever, and it can seem like glorification of some bullshit. So anyway, I can see like a kid wanting to do that. I mean, who doesn't when you're a kid? Romanticize, maybe that's the word, like the whole idea. But yeah, there's you got to pay a little bit more attention than just the first thing that comes along and suggests it's time to fight the power or whatever of the bureaucracy or whatever, because there's going to be at least 4 different ways of doing that, right? And how do you know you pick the right one right off the bat? Like, at least look around to make sure if you're right, that you're picked the right track. But you might find out that there's 3 or 4 positions on what you're doing, and not that you're wrong. It's just that there's other people that are right and there's other people that are right, and all 3 tactics can't work together. So there's going to be some what's the word? Complexity to this usually. And usually the people that are ambitious towards getting things done or just haven't looked at any of the complexity yet. They're allured by it seemed black and white. Let's just fix it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that you've looked at the whole situation yet. I'm not saying you're wrong. I just don't think you've looked at the whole thing yet.
Yeah, and you have to learn it, and you also can't run around. And the sad part is there's so much energy in people that are coming in, and they don't know the whole story, and they're ready just to upset the entire apple cart. And I'm like, bro, this is not just an apple cart. There's a whole bunch of other stuff on here too, and there's nuance, and there's more involved. And I totally understand you want that energy, bro. I get it. Figure out the lay of the land, figure out where you fit in, and jump on it. I've watched off the top of my head at least two group of people come in with this great idea and then they disappeared. And I'm talking about they burned out in less than 2 years. Just done. And then I watched somebody else who's just in a slow spiral and had to change their ways, or they would have disappeared and become irrelevant too. And it's like, you can't walk around going, none of you people know what you're doing. I've been here 5 minutes and I figured this entire thing out already. I'm like, that's okay.
Well, and then it's like, I figured, like you just said, like, you don't know what you're doing. I've been here 5 minutes and I can see the answer. And then I'm not going to share the answer, but I can see the answer. It's like, well, then whatever. But,
yeah. And it's like, it's a marathon. No one's going to win our rights back today. Everyone acts as if the Bruin decision was a foregone conclusion. And it was just obviously this is how it's going to happen. I'm like, no, that was years of fighting. There was
or
years
the like little pot of gold at the end of some kind of board game. Like, boom, we all got rewarded with rights, and now we can put the game away.
Yeah, I'm like, no, that's not how it happens. Martin Luther King Jr.'s widow said it. Our rights are fought and won or lost each generation. This is a fight that has to be generational. This is a long haul. So if you feeling burned out and you're a 2A advocate, you can't take a step back. This fight will be here. It may be at a different place when you come back to it, but it will be here.
Well, that's a profound, dude. I like that.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Well, I mean, your take on that, advocacy, I mean, you're taking it from her, but, the idea that to take a break and come back, it's going to be different, but it's advocacy. Smeggy's saying, I wonder if other movements have the same burnout rates. No, I don't know if we're different, but I'm sure that all of them have the same dynamic, right? Like, I don't know how much, if we're exaggerated or if we have more or less, but I'm sure that all things have some sort of flow and dynamic to them.
Well, being around Rutgers, oh, sorry, the way the rest of the country says it, Rutgers. But being around Rutgers, you meet a lot of these kids that come in at 18, 19, 20 that are advocates, and they don't eat meat, they don't do this, save this, and then you meet them 5 years later, and they're like, yeah, could I have all you can eat pizza? All you can eat, meat lovers pizza. Like, yeah, they are burnouts. Johanna from Locked and Loaded Latino, she talks about that sometimes, that she was actually a animal rights advocate and vegetarian. And pretty much the same thing I talk about with people getting burned out. She got burned out with it, with the hypocrisy, with the radicalism, and other politics being pulled into it. And she finally bailed on the whole thing. And she was like, yeah, burnout rate. It's there with other stuff too. I mean, because like you said, people are gonna people. We ain't that special as 2A advocates. People are still gonna people.
That's interesting. And that's something that I have thought of before, that at least we have the potential, again, the opportunity for. And that's, you're right. Like, we are humans or whatever, and we have these dynamics, but we do change. And there's things that make us change, right? Like one of them was the Constitution and the concept of individual freedom as opposed to the other archies that happen throughout time. So, these things that give us the vector to change or the potential. So I'm thinking that gun ownership / right to own guns / what's the word, like attitude about guns in society. All those are essentially influx up for grabs to the extent that, they're under attack. There's constant pressure, and the vigilance or the awareness or the amplitude of defense of it is all, again, kind of in play. So I think that that's one of the things that we've got as an opportunity as we get together, because we have a real interest, a common interest in our civil right, in our, our, what's the word, like inherent right. We have this common thing that is under attack by misguided people. It's not like we're an inconsequential difference, like I'm from one team and you're from another team, and we fight because on Sundays we fight and we all get our energy out and we spend our money and we have our fun and we have our tailgate and we go home and we do it again because that's how we have fun. We're not doing it for that, and I don't think the other side is doing it for that. We both have these motivations that are significant, that are real, and what's missing is the competent communication to eliminate the confusion that keeps it going, right? So I do see that there's a potential change that can be made that isn't just the repetition for the sake of repetition. And that's where I think there's this potential for us as gun owners to lead the way in accomplishing, let's say, modern, what's the word, like methods of communication. We have the internet to master. We have social platforms to either master or to the challenge of working around them. But because we all think so much about this, or we have the same inherent feelings about this, we're all willing to do just about anything that we can and strategize and allow, come up with, evolve our conversations. Like, think about Brooke Cheney, who's going to be on later on today, and she's doing a consistent after. Well, no, she's not. She was on for some reason at 6 a.m. today, but she had a great point, and it was, I forget what she called it, but it was essentially breaking the person's OODA loop, right? We would think of it as breaking an OODA loop. So somebody's depressed, they had a bad day, and everything's going wrong, and the puppy kicked them and everything. And you ask them, well, what's the name of the street you lived on when you were young? Or some just off the wall question that's inconsequential, and it just breaks the pattern. And you come up for air and you go, oh, thanks. You're right. I was in a spiral there. So, that tactic, that little tool, that's something that is a tangible effort that's being made to end the confusion, right? To eliminate the kind of the things that they use to exploit. And I think that that's where, as gun owners, I guess is what I'm getting at, we have the potential to do this successfully, and then people can apply that to healthcare. Like, hey, we're having troubles with healthcare, but it's because there's this conscious effort to make everything confusing so that no one is just breaking this down and laying it out. Even the so-called people on our side are just giving us the pieces that they want to, propaganda, so to speak, to keep their position, So anyway, once we figure out to have these differences yet agreements, and figure out a way to, through awareness and education, explain this to the other side so that this becomes a non-issue, like you said, so that guns aren't a political issue anymore. The success there isn't just that we got our guns. The success is that we've unlocked another level of communicating about important topics amongst a spectrum of political people, right? And essentially, I think the way that that's going to happen is with politicians being removed from the conversation. Like, it'll just happen amongst the individuals, and then the politicians will have to deal with it. And again, that takes the power away from governments, politicians, and those systems, and gives us back the power, however we choose to figure it out. And I think there's it's not inevitable and it's not a foregone, but I think it's an opportunity we've got as gun owners to add that level of like achievement to the overall, I don't know, whatever you call, like evolution of humans, because I really think it's that big of a deal. Like, when we figure it out, others will be able to emulate it.
We have an opportunity now, because of the way communication is, to reach more people quicker with good information than ever before in human history. Just looking back on, I think his name is Roy Williams, the brother, I forgot the dang book he wrote. I used to have it right beside my table at all times. He was a black guy in South Carolina in the 1950s that pretty much was fighting against the racism there. And His last name was Williams. He was United States Marines back in the day. They actually forced him out of the state, and he took off to Cuba and lived in Cuba the rest of his life because they tried to charge him with kidnapping a white family. When what he did was the Klan was shooting up his town, and he became an NRA instructor, a certified instructor, and he was able to purchase firearms through the CMP, and he armed his neighbors so they could actually shoot at the Klan if the Klan came in, and the Klan would come through their town and shoot up the place. Anyway, what he did was start his own organization. NAACP was there, but the NAACP was not supporting him because, again, large organizations have different priorities. And they were about getting funding, and they weren't about being radicalized or armed. They were anti-gun, even when you were being shot at as entertainment by the Klan driving through black neighborhoods. Well, he wasn't about that. He was actually the president of local NAACP, and they fired him because he said you should be armed against armed incursions in your neighborhood by people that want to kill you. Anyway, he started his communications by writing a newsletter, and then you have to use a mimeograph machine in libraries. And then he had a mailing list that he would mail stuff across the country, and that's how people got news about what was happening in his neighborhood. This was in the 1950s, where you run it off and you got that blue ink all over your fingers and everything, running copies. And now we're to the place that we can have this podcast, and we can have various other podcasts reach people not only here, but in other countries. And we need to use that opportunity to grow. Understand, we're just doing what was done when this country was founded in the first place, except instead of meeting at a tavern, we're meeting here.
From my understanding of the events that got us to where we are, from my understanding of those, that we're simply standing on the shoulders. We're just using new tech. We're using new words, but we're doing the same things as back in the day.
We're doing the exact same thing, but we can have the same failure they did back in the day too. They eventually took the eye off the ball. They eventually allowed politicians, the maniacs, to run the insane asylum. I don't know what years it happened, but we did. We gave up our power as citizens. We were able to affect change like no one's business when this country was new. Now we have so many distractions that different things take priority, and also, again, with the manipulation of the media telling you what's important, and the issue of the week that you need to be worried about, that the sky is falling over, and it's like, no, it's not true at all. And again, when we have horrible tragedies, natural events or otherwise, we focus on what's important, and it doesn't last too long before they try to split us up again with their freaking panic of the week that divides us. And once you start noticing that, you can't kind of unsee it. And I think one of the best ways is to take a step back. It's either watch the news from the other side, and I did the air quotes here, but you know what I mean, or just take a step back from all news. And you'll start noticing almost on a weekly basis. It's like you're in the Super Friends, and every week there's some cataclysmic planet-ending event. Well, like, it can't be one.
Only there's not always a conclusion. It's usually just the lead up, or the coming up to the commercial, and then they'll just change episodes after the commercial because it's time for the next one, essentially.
Yeah,
because they figured out they don't need to run through the whole cycle. It's not like a story, they just.
Every
so I want to say, though, I don't disagree with you, and I think one of the reasons that we're in the place that we're in, with just in the broad strokes, is that for a long time the media was kind of, first it was introduced to us and we all got addicted to it growing up with it, and those were few channels and older distribution systems, and that's when the established whatever we want to call them now, networks, but the established entities became a thing. I probably shouldn't have fiddled with my mic cord in the middle of talking. But I think that I've mentioned this before, there's this evolution, and we are to where we are because of where we come from, right? So there was these old distribution channels, and because of it, we're all kind of accustomed to things, and we're becoming less and less accustomed to some things, and we're becoming more accustomed to the new things. But I'm going to fall back without explaining all that again. I'm going to fall back to like the idea that as the baton gets handed from the greatest generation or the boomers or whatever you want to call like the generation that existed during World War II, and we're not a big generation, so we're not really in the big play. The baton will get passed by the number of people in the population from our parents to the kids that were born since 2000. So those kids are just now hitting the workplace and getting, life lessons and figuring shit out, becoming parents and everything else that changes them into like essentially yuppies or 30 somethings back in the day. And those kids are not going to be as indoctrinated into the old methods of distribution of content or messaging, propaganda and whatnot. And I think they're going to be a bit more savvy. Now, they're susceptible to a whole nother level. I'm not saying there's some kind of superheroes. I'm just saying I think there's going to be a dynamic shift. And the things that we see now, even YouTube now, is reminiscent of a network. Everyone goes to YouTube because it's easy and it distributes everything. Well, if we had just a little bit different understanding of the internet, we would all have our own distribution centers and we wouldn't need a YouTube. We would just need a TV guide, and everyone would figure out hosting on their own, and we wouldn't rely on the one host to distribute who gets to see what. And we'd have a whole different way of sharing things and distributing things. And I think that's going to have more value going forward to the new generations. And at that point, you really lose any stranglehold from any kind of old-fashioned like content stranglehold. And I think then you have the potential for politicians to be less worried about, well, I guess we wouldn't have money coming from people who also tell us what we think. And that, once people can think for themselves again, and I really think that's a potential of the internet, doesn't mean it's always good. People are going to think dumb things, but we're going to figure out how to scrutinize and determine stuff. And once we get to where we're all like, kind of like Star Trek or something, like we're all aware of what the facts are. And, once you are aware of the facts and everybody can agree on them, I really think it's a little more harmonious because people can go, okay, I know the facts. And now that I see the facts, it's not so black and white that you were against me. You were in a situation that put you against me. But in reality, if you could have done things differently, I'm sure you would, blah, blah, blah. Everybody's, more chill. So if that's the case, then, I could see a future where we're not doomed. In other words, that, people do figure this shit out. Politicians kind of get stifled. Government knows its role, and capitalism is allowed to do its thing, especially when resources aren't as, again, like kept from everybody. A couple of meteors full of whatever resource we need to make super chips or whatever 3D holograms, we'll grab a couple of these meteors, bring them to Earth, or create some kind of shuttle system to the meteor belt, and it's a whole different playing field. And so we're not even thinking about, humans once we jump off of this planet and we've got all the resources of space. How far away is that in reality? Our grandparents woke up as babies and couldn't even hardly fly. They died having gone to the moon, putting up telescopes that could see the beginning of what we know as time. You know what I mean? Like, what do we think that all that's stopping, or are we going to die on Mars? Or are we going to die being plugged into some computer matrix and just a robot body? Matrix. Well, anyway, that didn't get too off a topic, but we're 3 hours in, so that's what you get for jumping into a country. 3 hours in, right? You got into a computer brain at the end of it all.
Yeah, right. It's hilarious how these things go, but hey, I'm glad everybody stuck with us. And I know I'm thankful for you and the work you've helped me achieve, and others like the guys and ladies here. I think it's awesome. So sometimes I guess we get caught up, and you've helped me with that before. We get caught up in the thing that's not happening, and sometimes we don't appreciate the awesomeness that is happening. And I think that's one of the things we should take time out to do too. And that's what I do sometimes when I look around, especially after a diversity shoot, and I realize we've just introduced 15 to 20 people to everything that's involved in the firearms thing, and they left here having a good time. So I did my first after action interview in the room with just everybody that came back in to pack their stuff up, and they were just really excited about shooting a gun for the first time. Can't wait to come back. Want to bring other friends back. And it's good. I want them to become advocates, but I can't make them become advocates today. But what I can do is after about the fifth time or fourth time they come in, they go, you know what? Maybe I will join CNJFO. Maybe I will follow them on a forum or get their newsletter. And now I'm more aware. Or how's this one? I didn't join any of those things, but all of a sudden my cousin wants to get a carry permit and I know who to talk to. Well, I just turned that person that never touched a gun before they came to my event. Within 2 events, I turned them into the firearms expert in their circle of friends.
Right, and they're certainly not discouraging anybody. And then as more of their friends get used to it, then again, there's the parents, the girlfriends, boyfriends, other people they work with and go to church and school with. They're aware that their gun owners are, at least adjacent to gun owners, and there's a lot of reach there.
Yeah. So, and sometimes, again, when I get caught up in this and thinking about what we haven't done, I'm like, sometimes you got to take a step back and change perspective and see how far you've actually come.
That's a good point. I'm going to leave it at that.
Yep.
You said the next one is the 16th?
The 17th, August 17th, Gun for Hire range. I've created all the tickets on Eventbrite for this month's diversity shoot. So I have one on the 17th at Gun for Hire range. I have another one on the 31st at Recoil range in Monroe, New Jersey. So the tickets are already made up, and you can purchase them now, or you can wait until the last minute like everybody does and stress me the hell out so I don't know how much pizza to order.
But you could also, if you just want to support the project, go there and order tickets and let them know this is just to buy some pizza, sell another ticket type of thing, so people can use that as a way to help support the project, even if they've got no ability or intention to really show up at the event. Yeah,
you can definitely do that, or you can actually, because I started that this one on Twitter, Second for Everyone with the number 4 and the number 2 for second. Second for Everyone on Twitter is I got a pizza Venmo. Just, you can donate money and pose it for pizza and drinks. That'd be great. That'll help me pay for it, because I think we dropped, 5 pizzas this week, 5 pies this week. And people enjoyed it. I had a bunch of teenagers eating pizza and shooting guns, and they couldn't wait to go home and tell their friends about it.
Yeah, I got issues with that weird ass pepperoni.
Oh, dude, you should have seen it. Pepperoni, cheese, right? Can't go wrong with that. If somebody's doesn't eat meat, but then I got the meat lovers, and you should have seen the people go bonkers over that. I'm like, oh, you sons of guns. Really? Because I hadn't eaten all day. Well, they want it. Yeah, of course. They want the meat lovers. And I'm like, okay, listen. We get a real fund going, and I can get these people to donate. Yeah, we can do, as long as somebody else pays for it. Yeah, I can have them get meat lovers every time.
What do those cost significantly more?
Yeah, about $5 more, but it's not as if I'm operating on a crazy budget. You know what I mean? So
I hear you. Yeah, another $25 on top of it is another $25.
Yeah, another $25. It is what it is. Look, man, I'm not going to complain. Again, I feel I'm achieving something, and if we can't afford it, sometimes I dip into our own bank account. I've been blessed, say it again, that through donations, we've been not having to do that, because, my wife lives in South Carolina helping her father out who has a medical condition, and I'm here in Jersey. So we kind of running 2 households on one paycheck. So that's what I can't continue dipping into it. I'm not going to GRPC. Pretty much because of the situation I just described. We were talking about it, my wife and I spoke in Phoenix earlier this year, and we still have to financially recover from that, because I dipped in my own pocket for that. And September coming up, I'm not going to do it again. You know what I mean?
No, I hear that. Yeah. Even with AmCon, it's hard to justify the cost from flying across the whole country and hotels and.
Yeah, flying across, and my wife was like, well, maybe if you'd only did the Phoenix thing and then, flew in that night or that morning, did the speech and flew out, then we might have broken even. And I'm like, and I would have broken down. I'm like, you know what time we'd have to fly out of Jersey to arrive in Phoenix to get there? What time did we kick that off? Like 8, 9?
You mean the
I think.
rally? It was only
Yeah,
4 hours, so yeah, like it would have been tight. And I don't know. I'm assuming flights fly all the time, but yeah, that would have been
that would have been me
a
showing
different
up.
situation for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so and I'm like, yeah, that would have put us in maybe a different financial situation, but your husband would have fell asleep at an airport and woke up in Timbuktu. I'm like, hey, wake up, fat guy! You got to get off the plane. We're in like a different stop now. But yeah, so I won't be there because I planned on being at the beginning of the year because we only have one diversity shoot at the end of September because I planned on being in a couple of different places and just so we're trying to do. We're gonna. I dedicated myself to become a 501c3 before the end of the summer, and that's what I'm pulling off. And that way, if money comes in, people can write it off as a donation. That's what I'm doing. And it's just going to be that simple. And hopefully people will help us finance it.
Right on. If I can hit my mute button again, I'll come back. And then, well, until then, like you said, you've got the next one, well, essentially the Thursday of the 17th and then Thursday of the 31st are when the shoots are. So if somebody wants to, again, grab a pizza, Venmo, or if you want to sign up, Eventbrite. Clover would normally be with us, but like I say, he was walking. He says, from what I understand, he was walking and he had his laptop in one hand and he had a big bowl of soup in his other hand, and he had put the soup down on the table. And he's old, and he thought he had croutons, and he dumped the laptop into the soup intentionally, and then went, "Oh, that's not croutons," and then ruined his laptop. I'm pretty sure that's exactly how it went down, and he's a miser, so he doesn't have any money, and he's not going to buy a new laptop. He'll have to, I guess, dry that thing out with dried rice or something. When we're not really sure what he's going to do. Maybe he'll hock something together on an Atari 2600 and a fax machine. But normally he would be on to chat with us. He would be on Tuesday. I don't know if he'll be on Tuesday anymore. We don't know if he'll be on for his Ghost and Clover show, the Gover show. Again, he doesn't have a laptop, so he's also in the middle of Texas. I don't even know if they sell laptops in Texas. So we'll be back next Tuesday or next Saturday with another Ask On Questions. We won't guarantee we're going to jump into the database, but please ask questions over at Ask On Questions if you have real questions. I do guarantee every once in a while we do go look at the actual questions and attempt to answer them in a useful way. But every once in a while we just kind of go on tangents like this one. And then we'll blame Clover again. He wasn't here to corral us, be on topic, right? I should probably get
it's 100% Clover's fault.
Definitely. We got the Patreon down there. Tony's got the Eventbrite and the Venmo. And I'm about to throw a commercial up here for the store. If you want to grab something from our store, it helps us keep our websites and our servers running.
GearWebsites.com is your source for firearms-based playing cards and books. We also have mugs, shirts, and posters with designs that we've made live. Of course, we have patches. Every Friday is Free Patch Friday. We appreciate your support. Thank you for shopping at GearWebsites.com.
Oh, I guess I should end it now.